The story begins with how physical training was carried out on a huge sports field. An unknown guy watched the girls running across the playground. There were an incredible number of these girls, all of them were young and beautiful. And also, these young ladies could skillfully play any sports game, such as volleyball. The mysterious guy thought that these girls were really very cool, and continued to watch them all this time. One of the students decided to contact her teacher named Tong because she was worried about something. As it turned out, the concerned girl wanted to complain about the guy who stood and stared at all the students for a long time. This really made the teacher very angry, because he must be some kind of pervert who likes to look at girls while training, which is why she went to deal with him. Suddenly, something unexpected happened, and the students began shouting after Tong that something terrible had happened. It turned out that the student named Yushi had lost consciousness and was not moving at all. The brave teacher immediately ran to the student, who became ill, to provide her with first aid. It seems that this girl had sunstroke, and when everyone was calling her, she couldn't even respond because she was already unconscious. The concerned teacher immediately exclaimed that all the girls should move away so as not to disturb the air circulation, because she was going to perform artificial respiration. Doing chest compressions, she begged the girl to hold on and not die, because she still had her whole life ahead of her and she was very young. Worried, Tong continued to massage her heart, hoping it would help. And then she began performing artificial respiration to bring the girl to her senses. Unfortunately, this did not help, although it took a lot of effort to bring the girl to her senses, it did not help at all. Thus, there was no reaction from Yushi and she was still unconscious. At that very moment, the teacher decided to enlist the help of her students to help take the girl to the doctor. Suddenly, the same stranger approached and asked all the students to calm down. The teacher immediately recognized him because this guy had just been spying on her students, and she ordered him to stay away from the girls. But this was no ordinary guy, and he asked the teacher to be quieter. After all, this student could have fainted precisely because of a heart attack. Because when running the girl had incredibly constrained movements. What happened during training could really be dangerous for her life. The alarmed teacher continued to insist that Yushi would be fine and that there was no need to worry. Then she decided to find out from the stranger why she should trust him, even though he said that it could be life-threatening. Meanwhile, another student came over and remembered that Yushi had previously told her that she had lost consciousness and was taken to the hospital with high blood pressure. She almost died on the way, and also the girl must have some medicine in her pocket. Hoping to find him, Tong immediately reached into the girl's pocket, and a bottle of medicine was actually found there, but unfortunately, it turned out to be empty, because the medicine. And also, it was incredibly creepy to take out the bottle itself, because it contained some very rare medicine. With ease, the guy was able to determine that the girl had indeed fainted due to a heart attack, and this smell was unusual. After all, this smell was from a traditional Chinese medicine for heart care, and the one who prescribed it is an expert. Listening to all this, the teacher still wanted to understand who this guy was. As if nothing had happened, he introduced himself, saying that they were also studying Chinese medicine, and his name was Shiniko Yur. Continuing to worry about the student, the woman wanted to know if there was another way to wake up the girl. The only way in this situation was artificial respiration and chest massage. Tong immediately objected because she had just given her artificial respiration and massage, but there was no effect, and he saw it himself, but the girl fainted due to a heart attack. This is not normal for an ordinary person, because strong lungs are needed to do proper artificial respiration. Only Shiniko Yur can save her, but he must do it in 10 minutes, otherwise the student will be in danger. This news really did not make the teacher very happy, but there was no other choice. And then she asked the doctor to help, and he believed that it was his responsibility to save the student's life and help teacher Tong. The worried teacher continued to watch everything that was happening, and thought about what this guy wanted to do. She might be thinking too much, but he could have appeared here because he is one of the school doctors, and after all, Yushi was in danger, and because of this, the school might be in trouble. Turning to her students, Tong asked them to turn away and not turn around, so as not to look at what was about to happen. The woman immediately announced that Shiniko Yur could begin the procedure while no one was looking. Well, the doctor remembered one saying that before the doctor there are no men or women, everything he does saves people. And you shouldn't fuss, otherwise it won't be good, you can't delay saving someone. This request made Tong even more angry, and she mentioned that 9 minutes had already passed and she should stop talking and hurry up to save her. Suddenly, the hero began to do an unexpected thing that the woman could not have expected. She immediately ordered it to stop immediately because she did not understand what he was doing. As it turned out, the guy took off his bra on purpose, and the woman is a physical education teacher and should know some basic things, but she doesn't even know that yet. That's when she remembered that when saving a patient, she must make sure that nothing is blocking the patient's chest. This is basic knowledge. Closely watching the bra, the guy saw something very strange, but as it turned out, he was just looking at it because it was pink and very beautiful. Angry to the extreme, the teacher shouted that she needed to be more serious and hurry up to save the student, because there were only 30 seconds left. 30 seconds should be enough because he was going to show his unique way of saving people, so you should wait a little. As a physical education teacher, she is so nervous in critical situations that she cannot control herself, but in this case, Tong still agreed to wait. Turning her head, the woman saw something very curious, and had never seen it before, and she exclaimed that Shiniko Yur would quickly save the student, and there was no need to engage in acrobatics here. Such a stance was necessary in order to perform a medical procedure that could really save this girl. With just one touch, the hero wanted to help this student so that she could come to life again. Only after just one touch, Yusi began to show the first signs of life. Amazed by such skills, the teacher exclaimed that the girl had finally reacted. The determined guy immediately realized that his time had come, because now he is leading his true chi into her, and thus will be able to bring her to her senses. As it turned out, this technique meant that he would perform mouth-to-mouth artificial respiration. From the outside it seemed that he was kissing the student. And he did it so skillfully, as if he had been training for years. This really embarrassed the experienced trainer, although she continued to watch everything that was happening and controlled the process. Looking around, she wanted to make sure that none of the students were watching the process. And soon after that, she began to think that fortunately everything worked out. If Yusi had not been seen like this, her reputation would really have been ruined. Meanwhile, Shiniko Yur announced that he had finished performing the procedure and was freed. In 2 minutes the girl should wake up, and she will have to wait a little. With a sad look, Tong continued to look at her student, feeling sorry for her. Fortunately, Yusi gradually really began to come to her senses and began to make some sounds. Shiniko Yur meanwhile, he said that she had already regained consciousness, and he would leave first, and if there were any problems, he would be in the director's office. At that very moment, Tong began to think about what this guy would be doing in the principal's office, because the school hospital is run by President Chiu, and he is apparently the new doctor. And also this doctor, brought by President Chiu himself, is not simple, and it seems that he is the same age as Tong. Suddenly, the hero decided to turn to the coach to ask something. It turned out that Shiniko Yur wanted to know where the director's office was. Expecting a completely different question, the woman replied that after this building he needed to walk 1 kilometer to the east, there was the director's office, but he didn't even know where the director's office was, which is why she wanted to ask if he knew the director of the school. Suddenly, a student ran up and shouted to teacher Tong that Yushi had finally woken up. The worried teacher wanted to find out from the student how she was feeling, and also told all the other students that they could now rest, and she would take care of Yusi. Fortunately, the girl was a little better. All this happened because she has an old illness, and she did not expect that symptoms would appear so often recently. If this is indeed the case, then the girl may be in danger, and in the future she should not do such strenuous exercise because it is truly life-threatening. Yusi also told the teacher that she had a strange dream. In it there was a person who treated her. Paying attention to her clothes, the girl also realized that something was clearly missing. At that very second, she realized that her bra had somehow disappeared and was nowhere to be found. Tong immediately realized that Shiniko Yur must have put the bra in his pocket on purpose, and it was her fault that she ignored his actions. Together they went to the hospital so that the girl could go there and rest there. If she faints next time, Tong will help her remove the bra, to avoid pressure on her chest, and give it to one of her friends. Today she unfortunately forgot who she gave it to, but she will know about it later. The teacher also understood that the doctor said that he would go to the principal's office, and she had to quickly find him and return Yusi's bra, otherwise the woman would obviously have problems. Some time later, events continued not far from the director's office. Walking down the corridor, the hero thought that he had walked 1 kilometer to get here. It is really worth it to work at the best university in China. Suddenly, the guy discovered that not far from him there was a sign that said that this was the director's office. Knocking on the door and walking inside, the hero immediately apologized for the disturbance. After all, he wanted or not the headmaster of the school, Chiu Hongshin, and the woman replied that this was indeed the case. The man sitting in the office was clearly in a negative mood towards Shiniko Yur, and this was clear at first glance. Watching the director, Shiniko Yur realized that she really looked very beautiful. With her perfect body and her cold expression, she should be a model, not a director. The unknown person asked the hero if his name was really Shiniko Yur. And he introduced himself. His name was Long Tenyu, and he is a friend of Xian, and also part-time general manager of Dragon Group. This is because he is one of the authorities in the trading world, and this guy is just trash who cannot compare with him. Shiniko Yur didn't understand what kind of friend he could be talking about, because he met this girl a year ago, and she didn't say that she had a boyfriend. The man who extended his hand received not a handshake, but a touch with 2 fingers. Thus, the main character named Shiniko Yur greeted him, and introduced himself as a descendant of the Xiong royal family and Xian's fiancée. These words truly angered Long Tenyu. And then, he removed his hand, because he no longer wanted to shake it with this guy. After which he shouted that Shiniko Yur is an ordinary person, and he is just a doll, and he and Xian are free to love each other, and the Xian family also knows him. Long Tenyu deserves to be the general manager of Dragon Group. His quick reaction is incomparable with ordinary people, a talented doctoral student at Harvard University in the United States. In addition, he is the youngest doctoral student. He is only 26 years old when he graduated. In addition, he is always considered a rare genius. Chiu Hongshin continued to think about it, but Shiniko Yur read that Long Tenyu's name is very well known, but he is not very good at speaking, which proves that he has not read a book in the past few years. And then the guy objected, because he said that over the past few years he had read a lot of books, and the guy could ask him about anything, or even he hadn't read a book recently. As it turned out, the hero read many books, such as Guaman, Riemann, Han Man, My Man, Solo Leveling, Reborn Player. Together they can fly around the earth twice, but they were never included in the school curriculum. The protagonist was even more indignant, because he didn't know if it was possible to read comics with books. Shiniko Yur said that he couldn't speak well, and he wanted to know, as he said earlier, and what exactly was bad. Hearing this, the main character was at first indignant and politely asked not to insult the comics. After all, then he will teach Long Tenyu and will ask about which Chinese civilization has been most respected for thousands of years. For Long Tenyu, this was not a difficult question, and he easily answered that it was filial piety. Watching everything that was happening, Chiu Hongshin understood that all this could end badly. This was really good, because filial piety is indeed the correct answer, and his marriage with Xian was blessed by their ancestors. If they obey them, they will violate filial duty, it will not be respectful on their part. Because between heaven and earth there will be no place where he can appear after this, and he will have to suffer the punishment of heaven and the 5 thunders. And in fact, there are many beautiful girls who admire him, even want to marry him, but he does not agree, and Long Tenyu was right, because Shiniko Yur has never seen Xian. This further proves his devotion. After all, he took a lot of risks. Coming back here, even if Xian was an ugly monster, he would still have to marry her. The indignant girl continued to listen to all this, and understood that this guy was really talking some kind of nonsense. And then she asked if Shiniko Yur really said that there are many beautiful women who admire him and those who want to marry him. This was true, but the guy also claimed that he would only be friends with them, and never did anything that could make her regret it. Since all the girls admire Shiniko Yur, and even want to marry him, they must have feelings for him, and so she is going to go home and ask her grandfather to dissolve their marriage, as well as generous compensation that will last a lifetime. At that very second, the smart Shiniko Yur realized that if he agreed to terminate the stupid contract, she would give him a tidy sum. His guess was correct, and Chiu Hongshin wanted to know how much money he wanted. Without losing hope, Shiniko Yur asked the girl how much his family was worth, and first it was necessary to send this guy. Long Tenyu wanted to know what this guy was talking about, who had set his sights on his girlfriend. Suddenly, another girl came and saw that Long Tenyu was very busy. The man replied that he was waiting for Shiniko Yur, but he only told him that he should go out and close the door. The door was closed, and the insolent man, who was almost going to beat the main character, came out. In fact, Shiniko Yur said that even if she finds a fake guy to deceive him, she should find someone similar, and this person clearly does not seem good. This guy was truly extraordinary, he could see it, however, no matter how good he was, because Chiu Hongshin had no intention of marrying someone she didn't like. With all her might, the girl wanted to find out how they could get rid of the marriage contract, but this was impossible, because it was his duty to his grandfather. He promised to marry the girl and give him many grandchildren. Listening to all this, Chiu Hongshin was even more indignant, because he believed that the girl was just an ordinary object that could be used. And then she decided to ask, besides money, as long as he promises to terminate the marriage contract, she can give him what he wants. It really sounded tempting, and the guy wanted to ask if she could give him some beautiful girls, because when he came to this school, he found girls as beautiful as clouds. As he came closer, he asked again if Chiu Hongshin could give him these girls, but it was impossible because there was no one in this place who could compare with him. The lady could not tolerate this behavior and tried to hit him, because the beauty he wants is unavailable, and he is shameless, because there are more than 40,000 people studying in this school, 60% of them are students, and 40% are beautiful girls. And he, with a total of 15,000 people, actually dared to think that all 15,000 beauties would be needed for this. The hero did not deny this, and also noticed that she seemed to have been studying martial arts since childhood. As soon as the girl raised her leg, he immediately noticed one very interesting detail. What he saw really amazed him, because he had never seen anything like this before. Confused, the girl did not understand what he was staring at and continued to look at. Getting even more angry, Chiu Hongshin considered the main character to be a real pervert. And she kept trying to beat him up because she hated the way he acted. Meanwhile, the guy was thinking that this was really good, because her legs were clean and tidy, and she also attacked with full force. The only pity is that Chiu Hongshin has been unstable all this time. Therefore, it is very easy to throw her off balance, and Shiniko Yur carried out a counterattack so that the girl fell. A moment later, she fell straight onto her desk because she lost her balance. Taking her hands, Shiniko Yur immobilized poor Chiu Hongshin, and could do whatever he wanted with her. Although she had studied kung fu since early childhood and was no longer weak, she did not expect that he was so strong that he did not resist, so she begged him to let him go quickly, otherwise he would regret it. As if nothing had happened, Shiniko Yur asked the girl if he let her go, would she continue to fight again. Then he had the idea that the best thing to do would be for the girl to be tied up. He took out the bra and decided that he would use it to tie up Chiu Hongshin. Although he is already an adult, he actually took this bra, so he is a pervert, and Chiu Hongshin begged to let him go, otherwise, she will tell Grandpa everything. But Shiniko Yura didn't care, and with a little effort he was able to tie the lady up with ease. After clapping to himself, he said that this was truly wonderful. Meanwhile, Chiu Hongshin began to get even angrier, because no one had insulted her like that since childhood, so she asked him to wait, because after some time she would finish him off. Sitting down at Chiu Hongshin's place, Shiniko Yur wanted to discuss her marriage because he checked the calendar. Next Friday is an auspicious day, although there is little time, but as long as they do everything quickly, there should be no problem. Trembling with anger, the lady said that Shiniko Yur should wait, because if he wants this, then she will tell her grandfather, and he will make a decision for her. In fact, he has already talked to Chiu's grandfather. He said that Xin is a very good girl, but she has a bad character. Grandfather knows about his skills, and he said that Suniko Yur can give up in front of Chiu Hongshin. Hearing this, the granddaughter didn't understand why grandfather was a fan of Shiniko Yur, and knew that he and his grandfather once met and talked for almost 4 hours, although she doesn't know what the hero said. When suddenly someone started knocking, introducing themselves as Teacher Tong, the girl asked if Dr. Xion was here. Then it dawned on the director that Tong had come specifically to Shiniko Yura, and this is really strange. After all, this person returned to Shanghai for the first time to come to this school, and she could not know that he was here. Also the teacher called him a doctor, which means he told her that he would go to this office. The brave guy immediately invited Tong to go into the office, as if nothing had happened here. The director was outraged to the extreme because she did not understand why the guy did this to her. Meanwhile, the teacher came to the director and did not understand what was happening here. Not understanding what was happening here, Chiu Hongshin wanted to ask Teacher Tong why she needed Shiniko Yur. As it turned out, the teacher had to come here because Dr. Xiong took the student's bra. That's when she realized that the bra with which Shiniko Yer tied her hands belonged to a student, and apparently the relationship between the two had become quite close. Even if there was a relationship between them, Tong was not stupid, and it was unclear why she came to the office so openly. The director also noticed that the sportswear she wears is very tight, but she cannot make out whether she is wearing a bra. Perhaps the Tong bra is now in the hands of the director. If Shiniko Yer returns it to Tong, then he must untie her hands, and the teacher does not know that Chiu Hongshin's hands are tied by the bra. The teacher admitted that it was her fault because she should have asked for a bra earlier. Chiu Hongshin, all this time, he was thinking that the two must have been hiding in the far corner of the campus. Shiniko Yer took off her bra and put it in his pocket. After the incident, someone happened to pass by, and the two of them were busy cleaning up their clothes so much so that Shiniko Yer forgot to return the bra. It was completely clear to the director that Tong certainly knew about her relationship with Shiniko Yer, and did not want them to be together, so she came here to create drama. Suddenly, the main character stood up and admitted to the teacher that he had been using him, and he proceeded to tell the teacher that he would use this bra for a little while and return it later. The girl didn't understand why Shiniko Yer needed a bra, a student, and why he would use it. Coming closer, the director said that if the teacher did not need anything else, then she urgently needed to return to the classroom. That's when she started to leave, but she also didn't understand what had happened to Director Chiu Hongshin. Hongshin obviously didn't expect Teacher Tong to be like this. They are in a relationship after all. Shiniko Yer and Teacher Tong are a very shameless couple. Some time later, the girl wanted to ask if 100 million would be enough to help Tong Xian marry him. The guy really admitted that the teacher is very pretty, but if she really wants to follow him, then he will not refuse, but their marriage contract cannot be terminated. To terminate this marriage contract, she doesn't know how many reasons she came up with, how many times she felt depressed, how many nights she suffered from insomnia, how many times she asked her grandfather, but it was no use. Shiniko Yer believed that this should not be the case. After all, he is the groom. This marriage was concluded by his grandfather and the girl's grandfather. When the two old men agreed, no family can cancel the marriage without consent. If it does not believe, then it can go home and ask your grandfather and brother who was there at the time. Hearing this answer, the girl then wanted to know why Shiniko Yer would agree to a divorce. He didn't think it was possible. This marriage was established by his grandfather, and the girl's grandfather, and she knows that he is very well-mannered, especially obedient. Chiu's grandfather said that Chiu Hongshin is not an ideal wife. The lady continued to threaten, and warned, if he understood, the marriage should be dissolved, and she can try to satisfy his demands. Otherwise, even if she reluctantly marries him, there will be nothing in the house, hysterics every day so that I couldn't get happiness because I decided so myself. For Shiniko Yer, this was not a problem. However, her family has money. After they get married, he will hire many nannies, cooks, cleaners. She will not have to do anything around the house. Even if he loses his temper, but can bear it. Besides, after the wedding, basically, they don't need to meet during the day. She, as a wife, will only need to sleep with him at night. Breaking free, the girl shouted that he needed to get out of here, and never come across her again. But this will not work, because her grandfather asked him to come to her, and also allowed him to work at her school so that Shiniko Yer would have an income. Chiu Hongshin immediately decided to ask about the guy's education, because in order to work here, he needs at least some kind of education. Shiniko Yer has been traveling with his grandfather since childhood, and today is his first time at school, so he could not get an education anywhere before. Continuing to be indignant, the girl still wanted to know what his specialty was. This is a really difficult question for him, because he has a couple of unremarkable specialties, which are medicine and martial arts. At the same time, the director believed that there is no need for martial arts. For her this skill is useless, because in her school there is security, namely SWAT, and it is not needed here. And as for medical skills, in the hospital of their school there are many talents. There are more than 20 chief doctors and deputy chief doctors, as well as 30 ordinary doctors. One of them returned after completing his doctoral work in the USA. With 10 years of clinical experience, he published 10 articles in the most prestigious medical journals in the USA and in the world, so Shiniko Yer is not needed here at all. Hearing about the head doctor's skills, the guy immediately wanted to meet her to see who she really was. The stunned girl did not know what to do, but still agreed to invite the impudent man to the hospital so that he could look at the doctors who are there. This school is very large, you even have to use transport to get around, because this school is the best university in Shanghai. The hospital at the school is also one of the best in the whole city. And the doctor, who was one of the best, when he returned home, wanted to work in the largest hospital in Xiaocheng, but after Qiu Hongxin gave her a department in this hospital, she did not hesitate to refuse preferential conditions and came to work here. Meanwhile, Shuniko Yur was thinking about how the school principal could drive such a cool car and offer to trade it for his bike because he thinks the car suits his personality very well. The angry girl ordered him to shut up, because he was not at all familiar with the feeling of shame. A moment later, they stopped nearby at the school hospital to look at the doctors who live there. A doctor named Miao Zhen should be inside, but she is busy right now, so they will wait in the corridor. In one of the chambers, Shuniko Yur discovered a girl whom he had recently saved. And then he had a question about why the student was in a coma again, although she had already woken up recently. As it turned out, after Yusi woke up, everything was fine with her. However, the bra was not found, and teacher Tong said she gave it to the students in their class. But after Yushi came to her senses, teacher Tong allowed them to study on their own and left the playground, and she doesn't know where exactly she went, and now Yushi is being made fun of by Odnoklasniki, which is just impudence. And one of the students deliberately forced Yusi to be more active, and it was really very cruel, so Shuniko Yur admitted that he would really like Yusi to live. Meanwhile, the school principal overheard this entire conversation and realized that she would clearly need to tell her grandfather a lot of things. Yushi's father was previously the deputy director of the Shanghai Police Department. If Yushi really got into trouble, her father would not give up. Having entered the room, the school principal wanted to find out from a doctor named Miao Zhen what happened to the student. She just helped her do all the tests, and it turned out that there were no abnormalities in her body, but she was unconscious, and this was strange. The girl told the doctor that this student's name was Yushi. Her father Mao Gongtang was the first executive deputy director of the city police department, and when the old bureau chief retired, he was the best candidate for the post of bureau chief. Therefore, when Mao Yushi unexpectedly entered Shanghai University, Qiu Hongxin was very afraid that he might not like it. Losing all hope, the doctor continued to insist that she check the tests, but found absolutely nothing. Coming closer, Shuniko Yur said that using the tools of Western medicine is the same as eating fast food, more harm than more benefit to the body. In addition, this can be checked, and the guy himself can show the results right now, only he needs to be allowed to do this. Miao Ren immediately couldn't understand who it was, but Qiu Hongxin introduced her friend, whose name is Shuniko Yur, and he is friends with her family. The lady immediately apologized to the guy and asked the mister if he was really studying medicine, because as it turned out, they were colleagues. The girl had a desire to find out the guy better, and she asked what university he was a graduate of, as well as what specialty he studied in. After thinking a little, the hero said that he had never been to university, and his grandfather taught him Chinese medicine. That's when Miao Zhen thought that although she studies Western medicine, she was also able to do research in Chinese medicine. Many families of Chinese doctors have inherited medicines for several generations, most of which have real effects and should not be underestimated. That is why the doctor asked Shuniko Yur to diagnose the patient in order to understand what happened to her. Traditional Chinese medicine pays great attention to detail, and he can tell just by looking at it that the reason is in the heart. And this is very serious. Conventional methods will not be able to bring her to consciousness. In order to wake her up, all that remains is to use needles. The doctor understood that the reason for crossing the silver needle was more complex than the pulse method. You not only need to know all the acupuncture points and functions of the human body, you need to be extremely precise so as not to damage the patient's body. Continuing to watch everything that was happening, Qiu Hongxin did not believe in her fiancé, and asked him if he was confident in his actions. I couldn't be sure, so I had to try it. However, Qiu Hongxin just said that Miao Ren is a doctor of science who returned from abroad. She has been practicing for 10 years, if she were not there, there would be no one to turn to. Meanwhile, the director wanted to know whether there would be any risk from this procedure, and Miao Ren knew that this was unlikely, because she carefully observed his confident expression. Moreover, a heart problem can only be diagnosed by a machine, but he immediately saw that she is sick means he really has skills. Suddenly, Shiniko Yur asked Xiu Hongshin to quickly take off the girl's shirt, because otherwise he would not be able to use the needles. Some time later, the director took off the girl's shirt, and he could very well begin his procedure. She would warn him if she needed to stop. With the help of strong concentration, the hero wanted to concentrate his strength, and began to do so. Everything in order to feel the patient's heartbeat and find the point where the needle needs to be inserted. A moment later, he finally found the very necessary point. At that very moment, he seemed to be reincarnated, and used all his medical skills to apply the secret technique of acupuncture. All the needles were stuck right next to the heart, all in order to cure it in a matter of seconds. From such therapeutic techniques, the girl's hand immediately began to tremble, and she herself began to scream, because she felt pain, although she was in a coma all this time. For the girls watching this process, such an event was simply incredible and unimaginable. Mao Yushi's illness was unusual, and his 5-needle rejuvenation method was successfully applied, otherwise it could have ended really badly. Because right now, Shiniko Yur must concentrate his efforts to get all the needles. A few minutes later, the patient's breathing was smooth and her pulse was normal. This was a really good result because her condition stabilized and Shiniko Yur was able to pull out the silver needle. Confused, Miao Ren wanted to ask Mr. Xiong for some advice, and also thanked him, because his medical skills are really high. If he has the opportunity, then she would like to learn something from the ancient techniques. Leaving the ward, the hero only said after him that he does not give advice. If possible, he can discuss this with a narrow circle of doctors, but he does not have medical qualifications, and doctors stop looking down on him when they see his skills. The director at that moment realized that this guy, and his medical skills are brilliant, but he does not have a certificate of medical qualifications. It seemed that this was rumored to be a wild doctor. However, regardless of his medical skills, it is illegal to provide assistance to people not having qualifications. The doctor also thought that although he did not have a medical certificate of qualifications, it was still a rare occurrence for someone so young to have a very rare and excellent medical technique. After a moment, Miaoren decided to ask Xian if they were friends and if she knew how old he was, and how he could gain such high skills at such a young age. The slightly excited girl immediately replied that his grandfather was one of the great fighters of China. He must have interacted with him since childhood, and in medicine, Shiniko Yur is really good from his grandfather. But it was unknown what exactly was going on in the heart of this man. After all, he is always serious, but no one knows what he is thinking about. Walking through the streets, the hero thought that he originally wanted to talk about cancer, but did not expect that he would be rejected. And fortunately, he took up ophthalmology from childhood, and managed to take a few more glances while no one was looking while treating the student, and for this he was really very happy. After all, Shiniko Yur also suffered from this disease when he was younger. When the guy was simply treating the disease, he saw her hand. Meanwhile, the student suddenly woke up and was shocked, feeling very strange. As soon as she stood up, she immediately began to cough sharply, and a strange liquid flowed out of her mouth. None of those present could understand what happened to the girl and why she was coughing with something unknown. Looking again at his hand, Shiniko Yur realized that things could be bad for the girl now. From weakness, the student fell again and could no longer move. Everyone believed that something unimaginable was happening to her. She fell back onto the hospital bed and could not move. The excited guy began to run to the hospital room, because he understood that the life of this student was in danger. Yusi looked very sick in her unconscious state and fell into a coma again. A lot of unknown liquid flowed out of her mouth, so everyone was interested in what happened to her. Even the qualified Dr. Miao Jing did not know what it was, because she had seen this for the first time, and it was also the first time she had encountered something like this. The concerned woman approached the girl to see what had happened to her and wanted to help her. Suddenly, Shiniko Yur ran in and ordered that no one should touch her. This student is now in danger. As soon as you touch her, she will immediately die. Time was running out, and it was necessary to help Shiniko Yura disinfect the silver needle. First, he would give it an impulse, and wanted to make a specific decision. Measuring the girl's pulse, the guy began to think about how to get out of this hopeless situation. Now he realized that he was careless, because this girl has been suffering from heart failure for many years, and she cannot bear his 5-prong life-saving method, which is why she has such a strong reaction, which is why she needs to be bathed in warm water and treated slowly. Meanwhile, the silver needle had been disinfected, and Miao Ren wanted to know what she should do next. The needles were heated just in time, and Dr. Shiniko Yur wanted to begin the operation. Asking the girls to step back, he ordered them not to interfere and to let him do it. And he performed acupuncture directly on the neck, and also below the navel, in order to use all the points that were necessary for treatment. Now he must massage Yusi and cleanse her meridians. With precise movements, he performed actions that had a healing effect on the girl. Miao Ren thought that he was focused on saving the person, and his character must be good. He is not what Chiu Hongxin thinks. Finally, the procedure was over and the dangerous period was over. It is very difficult to work with such serious patients, but fortunately, he once treated a similar patient with his grandfather, otherwise Shiniko Yur would not have been able to help her today. Chiu Hongxin realized that Shiniko Yur's grandfather was an important figure in the field of Chinese medicine in China, so it was not surprising that he could practice this type of treatment. So far, there has not been any threat to the student's life, but this girl's heart is indeed very weak. It needs to be taken care of, and it can no longer be stimulated much. Although she has fallen asleep now, she will wake up soon. She had such a serious illness since childhood, so her life was incredibly difficult. The director wanted to ask Shiniko Yur more about acupuncture, but only she wanted to understand why breast massage was needed after acupuncture, what it does with her illness. As it turns out, this has nothing to do with treating the disease, and he thinks that it is in the developmental stage, and by the way, he helped her increase her elasticity. In the future she will become the center of everyone's attention. Moreover, they should pay attention to equal exchange because he treated her twice today but did not charge her any fees, not even for medical expenses. But no matter what, he can help her too, because Chiu Hongxin can rest assured that it is free and will definitely work, but the director did not want to give her breasts for massage. Suddenly, Tong came in, having heard that her disciple was here, and for being cured, she thanked everyone who was present here. At that moment, Miao Zhen decided to admit that it was not she who actually saved the student, but Shiniko Yur, who did all the procedures. The guy at that moment was thinking that it was almost noon, and he had made an appointment with two friends. After he had eaten, he would return to Chiu Hongxin to talk again. If he doesn't drink too much, he'll come back here, so I decided to say goodbye to them now. Each of the girls had completely different thoughts about the guy. Some thought he was an idiot, some thought that traditional Chinese ancestral medicine was truly incomprehensible, and some understood that the student was saved twice today, and this person is wonderful. Meanwhile, Yusi began to gradually wake up. The girls quickly approached her to help put her clothes on. The student still woke up and wanted to know why she was unconscious and where she was now. The worried girls continued to stand over her, and wanted to know how she was feeling. Yusi, who had regained consciousness, was confused and did not know what to answer. Having finally come to her senses, she wanted to find out what happened, because she was on the sports ground, and then woke up here, and wanted to understand who saved her, and what method was used. And then Teacher Tong decided to admit that the situation was urgent, and fortunately, Mr. Shiniko Yur, a friend of the director, passed by and saved her. Oddly enough, the student wanted to see her savior, but the director only told her that he was not there now and had already left. Yusi decided to ask the director and bother her again so that she would give his mobile phone number, because the student really wanted to meet the savior. The dumbfounded director immediately began to deny it, saying that her mobile phone was in the office, and when she returned, she would send his phone number to the girl when she found it, although in fact she did not have a phone number. The joyful girl thanked the lady, because she was a little embarrassed. Today is Friday, and she wants to rest. She is also in poor health, and this way, she can get help from Teacher Tong to get home. As she left, the director praised Miao Ren for working hard today. But also, the experienced doctor understood that now she did not help much, and it was Shiniko Yur who did everything. Although she returned half a year ago because she graduated, but after today's events, she just realized one thing. Namely, that there is a person who is more capable than her, and it seems that she still has room to improve. Events continued to happen. An hour later, Chiu Hongxin thought that Yushi was helpless in front of her illness, but Shiniko Yur's skills really amazed her. When she was still young, her and her grandfather traveled around the world to heal and save people, and she encountered many patients with incurable diseases and had to study. If he has a medical qualification at such a young age, he will definitely become as important a figure as his grandfather. Currently, if a girl wants to let him take her as his wife, she should not allow it, but no matter who he becomes, he will still pursue her. This Shiniko Yur was indeed a very difficult person. She needed to figure out a way to make him give up completely. As a friend, Miao Jin called. Has Yushi's illness really returned again? The director thought. The puzzled woman immediately wanted to ask how the student was feeling and if she was okay. But in fact, everything was fine, and the girl just wanted to talk to the director. Suddenly, the doctor said that this was terrible, and Chiu Hongxin immediately agreed to meet her in a cafe to discuss everything properly. It turned out that the doctor really wanted to resign. After all, she was thinking about preparing to go abroad to practice and improve her own abilities, and then return to help her. This decision was made due to Yusi's illness, which struck everyone today. At the same time, the director did not try to dissuade her, but the internal medicine department is the busiest in the school, and she is the most qualified doctor among all the medical staff, and should stay for a while and appoint a senior doctor or recommend a suitable person if she wants to leave. Miao Jin really hoped for understanding, because currently there is one most suitable candidate, and she thinks that if she offers him a position, he will not refuse it. The surprised girl continued to look at the doctor, and realized that it was now about Shiniko Yura. It was true that his medical skills were so good that even she admired him, and his base salary was 50,000, a very attractive salary. For Miao Ren, the base salary was 50,000. If he came, his salary would definitely be equal to that of ordinary doctors, and even more so. This guy is studying Chinese medicine, and the director needs doctors. The experienced doctor at the same time understood that the purpose of the hospital of their school is to cure and save people. If the patient recovers, no matter what method is used, if it has to be done, then the woman assumes that all other departments will have less workload, and the Chinese medicine department will expand. Meanwhile, Chiu Hongxin was thinking that when she thought about Shiniko Yur's behavior in the office, she was so angry that she couldn't think straight, and now she had to ask him about the position of a doctor. Suddenly, Miao Jin decided to ask for Shiniko Yur's phone number so that she could invite him to school. The doctor immediately guessed that the girl didn't even know his phone number, because she felt very awkward. I didn't really know him, even though their families are old friends, but they met today for the first time, and he didn't call ahead, so the phone number was unknown. However, Shiniko Yur did not achieve his goal today, and he will definitely return, so the girl will call Miao Ren back when he has to, and if her intuition is to be believed, he will definitely stay. As a result, Miao Jin was going to wait for the girl's call, but she was still confident that he would stay no matter what, and even if the monthly salary was only 10,000 yuan. The puzzled girl nevertheless decided to find out what would happen if Shiniko Yur did not agree to become the school doctor, what the outcome of this conversation would be, and whether Miao Ren would leave in this case. The determined girl asked not to be kept because she had decided that she would go to the United States to continue her studies, regardless of Shiniko Yur's decision. Indeed, only Miao Ren could decide this, and if Shiniko Yur refuses, then it will be unknown who will now become the school doctor. Meanwhile, the hero walked around the city and thought that his grandfather left him less than 2,000 yuan in cash, and he still spent more than 1,000 to return home. Except for money for food and water, he was left with nothing. Fortunately, he rented this apartment. Although it is not in the best condition, it is still cheaper than renting. Upon entering, Shiniko Yur noticed that the tenant was standing inside the apartment, doing something there. She was outraged by this behavior, because she rented this apartment for him, and drove him away for several days, but this was not intentional, so she wanted to know when the guy would pay the rent. The completely calm hero asked his tenant to wait, because he had not eaten yet, and asked to let him eat, because he had just bought a pork chop on the street, and they were going to cook shredded noodles with pork. But she was unshakable, because Shiniko Yur is a man, and can say what he wants, but the deadline has already passed, and his rent was delayed for a whole month. Her patience is not unlimited. If he does not pay the rent today, then the woman will throw him out of the house. The guy decided to talk about how the rental problem can be solved very quickly. Today he found his rich daughter-in-law, but there are some problems, and he guarantees that no later than tomorrow, the rent will be transferred to her and will be paid within 1 year. The woman did not believe in such words, because he cannot justify his high IQ. If he has a wealthy bride, then she will not love him. And it seems that the tenant really was too lenient with him. For a whole month, he relaxed after she ate with him 3 times every day, if he couldn't afford the rent, then the lady was going to throw out all his things. Suddenly, the woman threw herself into his arms and begged the hero to pay the rent, because she wants her girl to be able to go to school, and it is very difficult for her to wait a month, so she very much asked him to hurry up. At that very second, Shiniko Yur promised to find his daughter-in-law and ask for some money, and then he would definitely return the rent, even with interest. Fortunately, it worked and the woman believed him, and he promised that if he couldn't pay the rent tomorrow, he would leave immediately. The woman was incredibly happy with this answer, and wanted to ask Shiniko Yur what he would cook for lunch after all. That's when he decided to tell the tenant that he would cook whatever she wanted, but he didn't have money, otherwise he would definitely cook a sumptuous dinner. The woman guessed that this guy just wanted her to buy vegetables. Entering his room, the guy wanted to ask the tenant if his daughter would come to him and if she would eat with him, but she went for a walk with her classmates and would not have dinner at home today. The guy immediately started thinking that she couldn't eat here with him, but he had to meet two families. They had been waiting for him for almost a month. He could cook the food first and then go to the market, let the two families wait for him for a while time. Unexpectedly, an unexpected situation occurred, and the daughter still came, asking her mother why she was bringing these vegetables upstairs, as if she had asked Shiniko Yur to cook them. The puzzled woman began to make excuses, saying that Shiniko Yur had no money, so she bought him vegetables, and she was going to cook for him, after which she wanted to ask her daughter if she had not made an appointment with her classmates. Sighing heavily, the girl said that her friend felt bad and she went home, so their meeting was cancelled. She didn't like it either, and she didn't even know that she was not at home, in which case, she would secretly allow Shiniko's brother Yura prepare a delicious lunch for her. The unlucky mother continued to make excuses, saying that she really bought food for Shiniko Yura, and the girl could ask him if she did not believe her mother. The lightning-fast hero began to descend to the first floor, and she told the girl that he was really hungry, and her mother was so kind that she bought him not only vegetables, but also meat. She also said that he didn't have to pay the monthly rent for the apartment, and today the guy was going to cook a hearty meal, so he thanked everyone very much. The dissatisfied woman thought that this guy found such a loophole, took her food as a favor, and cancelled the rent for a month. Shiniko Yur actually went to heaven. Just now he said that tomorrow he could find a rich bride in the spheres who would lend him money so he can pay the rent, but this is all a blatant lie. The good-natured girl agreed and asked her brother to come to their house in the evening to cook food and then eat together. The embarrassed boy also noticed that Yang Zi was unusually beautiful today. The woman clearly did not like this behavior, and she wanted to understand how the impudent man dared to suck up to Yang Zi in her house, because he wants to believe, he wants to know, but now she will kick him out of the house. As if nothing had happened, the guy began to leave. They say that there is no need to be nervous. He was all just complimenting Yang Zi to look beautiful, and he is poor, because he has no job, and the woman is heartless. The girl immediately began to sort things out with her mother, asking what kind of nonsense she was talking about. If she said something like that again, then she was going to ignore her mother. The puzzled mom wanted to find out from her daughter which of her friends had health problems. As it turned out, Yusi had problems. Today her illness manifested itself twice, so they separated. The mother immediately invited her daughter to visit her. After all, they are good friends, and she can give her money to buy 2 things in the afternoon and visit Yusi to visit, otherwise it will be a little rude. But the girl did not want to do this, because that I thought there was no need to do this. The clueless woman did not understand why her daughter suddenly became angry, and wanted to clarify whether everything was fine in her relationship with Yusi. Yang Zi, she said that her mother was mistaken, and she would not go, because their family was very different from her family. She only went to Yushi once, and her mother was too arrogant, so she did not want to see her. Meanwhile, Shiniko Yur stood at the bus stop, and thought that there was a restaurant nearby. He needed to take the bus. Fortunately, he had a photographic memory, and now all the bus routes of the city were in his head. While counting down, he thought about when the bus would appear, and counted every minute. Indeed, after the countdown ended, the bus arrived immediately. Suddenly, someone started to brake very sharply in an expensive car. It was Yusi, who seemed to see someone very familiar and asked her father to wait. Indeed, it was her savior who entered public transport before getting to the cafe. The girl immediately asked her father to go behind this bus, but the man did not understand why this was necessary. The student only said that she would be able to explain this to her father later, and now he just needs to go get the bus. At the same time, the main character was traveling on public transport and thought that this day was wonderful. It was also beautiful because you can see a lot of beautiful girls on the bus. But suddenly, he discovered something surprising for himself. Namely, that next to the girl there is a very suspicious man who is doing something incomprehensible. Drooling was flowing from his mouth, and his gaze was like that of a madman. Standing in this position, he can stare at the girl who was sitting nearby. Watching everything that was happening, the guy realized that he had not noticed it. That's why he has to find a way to tell this girl what's going on. The girl herself didn't notice anything near her, because she was very busy looking at something on her phone. What she saw there really fascinated her, because she couldn't take her mind off her smartphone. It turns out that this girl's name was Qian Yun, and she was looking at the news feed. Seeing that the girl was on a social network, Shuniko Yur added her as a friend and began typing a message. In the message, he wrote that she needed to be careful because there was a pervert behind her. The scoundrel continued to stare at the girl and did strange things on the bus. Fortunately Qian Yun saw it. She wanted to find out who this stranger was who wrote to her, but it didn't matter, because the hero warned the girl about the pervert. Shuniko Yur asked her not to be nervous, and look ahead, there is an old man standing there, and he must be asked to sit in his place, and then use the opportunity to get out of there and remain calm. A good-natured girl approached the old man and invited him to sit in his place. The elderly man was really very grateful for this. Thus, Qian Yun was able to avoid the conflict situation, and the scoundrel no longer threatens her. By writing a message, she indicated to the stranger that she had finally gotten rid of the pervert. She also thanked her in the message for the fact that the guy noticed and informed her about it in a timely manner. The kind guy was not against praise, but the girl still wanted to know where her savior was. Then the guy wrote that he was on the bus, and she could guess where he was. If she didn't guess, then he wanted to know her name. Looking around, Qian Yun wanted with all her might to find out where the guy was who helped her. Unfortunately, she didn't find anyone, and wrote that there were many people new on the bus with phones, and she couldn't guess, which is why she wrote her name, that her name is Shangguan Qian Yun. The savior also introduced himself and wrote that his name was Shuniko Yur. The girl was really very glad to meet her, that such a kind person wrote to her. The main character was really very kind, not like this pervert who was looking around. Shuniko Yur only wrote that there is no need for gratitude, because any man would have done the same. All this time he was watching that same pervert, and showed him his class, mocking him. The scoundrel clearly did not like this behavior, and dissatisfaction was visible on his face. Suddenly, someone started shouting at the old man, saying that he had no eyes. It was the same bully who shouted that the old man had stepped on his shoes. The elderly man immediately said that the young man was clearly mistaken, because his feet were in front, and there was no way he could have stepped on his shoes. The scoundrel wanted to talk to the old man because he was standing next to his seat and he could not step on his own foot. The pensioner continued to complain that he had a headache, but the scoundrel didn't care and grabbed the poor man. Everyone on the bus immediately started shouting at the scoundrel so that he would not dare to scare the old man, and Shangguan Qian Yun filmed everything and posted it on social networks. The bully didn't care at all, and he hit the defenseless old man right in the face with all his might. The poor man's false teeth even flew out from the strong blow, and he began to fall to the floor. The girl couldn't believe her eyes, because she had never seen anything like this before, and the old man began to fall right on top of her. Suddenly, someone behind her grabbed her hand, and then he began to reach out his hand to grab the old man. As it turned out, it was Shuniko Yur, who immediately saved a defenseless man and a stunned girl. Addressing the girl by name, Shuniko Yur wanted to know if she was okay. Blushing, the girl began to feel embarrassed and said that everything was fine, but she didn't immediately understand where the stranger came from with that name, but then she realized that it was Shuniko Yur, whom she met in correspondence. After which, the brave guy decided to approach the scoundrel and said that he should not leave with his tail between his legs, because he would not succeed, and he should receive punishment. He continued to shout at the guy, saying that this had nothing to do with him. If he didn't want to get punched in the face, then he needed to leave. In fact, what Shuniko Yur hated most was when fingers were pointed at him. Therefore, with a slight movement of his hand, he used his ancient technique, with the help of which he was able to neutralize the scoundrel's finger. The pervert and hooligan immediately began to scream in pain, because it was unbearable due to the fact that the finger could no longer move. If he wants to improve, then he should find that old man's family and be with them, otherwise Shiniko Yur will not be able to help him. Meanwhile, Shangguan Qianyun tried to show first aid to the old man. It turned out that he was suffering from epilepsy, and the scoundrel simply pushed him and stimulated the disease, after which he also slapped him in the face. The enterprising guy said that he could help, but in this case, you need to pay 50 million yuan, and that would be fair. The enraged scoundrel continued to shout because he was from the Black Dragon, and he had to be careful, otherwise they would find Shiniko Yur and get even with him. The hero didn't care at all about this, and he did not perceive such threats. The impudent man immediately began to attack the ambulance with varnishes, because he shouted that the Black Dragon Tea Club was one of the largest criminal organizations. That is why the hero was fair and fought against evil, that is why he hit the villain with all his might. After which, the police arrived and took the hooligan away for what he did on that bus. Unfortunately, the old man was still unconscious and needed to be taken to the hospital, but it was too late and Shiniko Yur wanted to take care of him. Currently, only the method of passing a silver needle through the acupuncture point can be used. If all 5 needles pass, then the old man will wake up. Alarmed, the girl wanted to know if these needles could really cure the illnesses of this old man. He cannot be cured. Even if you use Chinese medicine, you can only contain his disease. The 5 needles will help restore his mental clarity. Shangguan Qianyun didn't know that waking up from several needles was even possible. And then the guy offered an agreement. If everything works out for him, then the girl will be obliged to invite him to lunch today, and if it doesn't work out, then he will invite her to lunch. At the same time, the girl felt fooled, because no matter who wins, they will still have lunch together. However, Shiniko Yur's acupuncture can actually cure an old man in a few simple steps, although she has seen many outstanding doctors, but this is the first time a person has done this. If such an excellent doctor worked at their university hospital, she would really be fine. Some time later, Shiniko Yur completed his task and brought the old man to his senses, after which they began to head out to eat. Now they were going to the Fumanla restaurant, which was nearby. All this time, the rescued student watched the couple and thought that perhaps they were dating. And it was strange, because she didn't understand why they were together. Director Chiu Hongshin and Shiniko Yur seemed to have a relationship, but for some reason now he was alone with this girl. The father still wanted to know if the girl was following her classmate. It was not like that. That girl, Shangguan Qianyun, works as a nurse in the hospital, and they have a good relationship. She just didn't expect that she would be with her boyfriend. Indignant, the man thought that this guy was her boyfriend. If he really was her boyfriend, then he would now break his legs, because how dare he do something like that. But because he had an appointment with Dr. Lin, he thought it was better to leave here after all. The concerned man argued that Dr. Lin must cure the girl's illness. She needs to be sure because he is one of the 4 famous doctors in China, and the father specifically contacted him to examine the girl. Some time later, they found themselves in a restaurant, and the boy was surprised that Shiniko Yur brought his daughter-in-law, but for some reason he did not warn them in advance, because it seems that they should go to a more upscale restaurant, especially since they have not ordered anything yet. Embarrassed, Shangguan Qianyun immediately began to deny. After all, they just met, and she is not his daughter-in-law. After all, she is really taking too much risk today, because she just met a guy and is already having dinner with him. The main character's relatives treated their daughter-in-law differently than strangers, and she can eat with them. Although this conversation embarrassed the girl, she still said that she works as a nurse at school. The little guy was called Monkey, and the big guy was called Bear. They were very worried about who this daughter-in-law was. These names really made the girl laugh a lot, because these people named Bear and Monkey are really very interesting. They are indeed both worthy of their nicknames, but Shangguan Qianyun wanted to know why they call Shiniko Yur's brother a hanged ghost. It turned out that they grew up together since childhood. When Shiniko Yur was taller than them, his face was very pale, but he was very thin and his tongue was constantly sticking out. He looked like a hanged ghost, that's why they call him that. The monkey also said that the bear has money, he earns hundreds of thousands, so the girl can order any food she wants. The bear also mentioned that he earns a lot because he works harder than the monkey, waking up every morning before 3 o'clock to work as much as possible. But the angry macaque believed that he had been cooking barbecue for years, finishing work late at night, and he believed that he could outdo him. Meanwhile, Shiniko Yur asked the girl not to be surprised because they have been competing for more than 10 years if they don't know each other's results and she doesn't have to worry about them, so the lady can order her own food. The guys did not stop quarreling, saying that they would treat their companions and pay for the food, and also wanted to meet with them again. Stopping them, the girls said that she would not mind meeting tomorrow at noon, but then they would no longer call her daughter-in-law, because they were just friends. Shiniko Yur also told the monkey that he really just met Shengguan Qianyun, and they are just friends, so there is no need to talk nonsense. At the same time, the hero understood that Qianyun is a good girl, she doesn't care about him, he just cast a fishing rod to catch a big fish. Compared to Chiu Hongxin, it's very beautiful, but the difference between their characters is too great. Meanwhile, the events continued now later. Qianyun said that she had to go to work, so she would go first, and next time she would invite him to lunch. All the guys watched the girl's beautiful figure and could not take their eyes off. There were a lot of beautiful girls at the university. The guys even heard that the university is a place where beautiful girls gather, and yet, the university is under strict control, and most people are not allowed there. Suddenly, the main character said that he was going to go to Xin University, and asked his comrades if they wanted to go with him. Without hesitation, they immediately agreed. Stunning handsome men gathered to conquer all the girls who are at the university. Arriving at the university, the monkey immediately noticed that there were really only beauties around. The bear also saw that beauties were around them, each more beautiful than the previous one. University is really very cool, because they have never seen such beautiful girls. And then the friends decided to remind him that Shiniko Yur had something to do because he was going to find Chiu Hongxin. And at this time they will go to the beauties who surround them to get acquainted. These ungrateful friends went without him to meet girls, but he should forget about it, because he still needs to talk to his daughter-in-law. Suddenly, someone tapped the guy on the shoulder. It was Teacher Tong who thanked the doctor for this morning, because if something had happened to Yushi, it would have been very difficult. And he really didn't deny that she was lucky that he was passing nearby at that moment, because if it weren't for him, Yushi would already be dead, and he had to do something. The perplexed teacher wanted to ask the guy to spare some time because she wanted to invite him to lunch to express her gratitude, so she asked him to give his phone number or she would add him as a friend. Thus, they decided to add each other as friends, and Shiniko Yur handed over his QR code for this. As a result, the satisfied boy began to leave, and asked the girl to invite her to dinner early, and she only wished him good luck and that he be careful. After which, the girls suddenly started writing messages to someone. This message was intended for Yushi, and Tong sent her the savior's phone number. Without hesitation, the girl asked her father to help her find the person. For him it was not a problem, so he asked for the name of this person. That's when she decided to give Shiniko Yur's name and also his phone number. Some time later, events continued in the director's office. Shiniko Yur there wanted to find out when he and his daughter-in-law would get married. Indignant, the director asked him if he really wanted her to marry a man she had never seen before, because it was impossible. Grandfather would try to force her to do it, then she would go abroad and never return. The guy immediately realized that if a girl said that, it means she had already made her decision. Simply put, he can stay here as a school doctor. After all, they only communicated for a short time, and if she can fall in love with him, she can easily get out on her own, but otherwise, they will break off the engagement. Throughout the day, Chiu Hongxin thought about it. Even though he doesn't have a doctor's license and can't work in hospitals, and he can't open his own clinic, he can still be a school doctor here. And nobody will know about this as long as he remains silent, and one should be careful around doctors, because the director did not want to get new problems, and if he gets caught, she will not be able to help. The doctor's salary will be 10,000 yuan. In addition, they also have a small bonus in the department. Even this outcome of events, Shiniko Yur was very happy, and happily agreed. Although it really wasn't a very big salary, before he answers, he would like to see her sincere desire to invite a guy to this position. The slightly arrogant guy decided to ask for an advance payment of 3,000 yuan because he had to pay the landlord a month's rent and as compensation he could get a chest massage. Having received a slap in the face, Shiniko Yur was rejected, but fortunately, he was still given an advance, and he really needed the money now. Suddenly, someone started screaming and then that he needed help, and it was really strange, because why in a large school dormitory there were still people who needed help. Listening, the guy realized that it must be this girl, because the voice was very faintly audible. Realizing that someone might be in danger, the guy immediately decided to act, because things could really get bad for such a girl, and she could end up in critical condition. Meanwhile, the security guard noticed the guy and asked him where he ran to the women's dormitory, but Shiniko Yura did not have time to explain, and he asked to call an ambulance. Having burst into one of the dorm rooms, the guy ordered not to touch the girl, who was feeling unwell. She just died. Fortunately, all the organs except the heart are still working, otherwise, even the great fairy Luo technique would be useless. A moment later, the security came in and was amazed that this brat was running away very quickly, and this hostel is only for girls, and there is no place for guys here. Meanwhile, Shiniko Yura asked to speak more quietly and not disturb him, because he had to help the girl. The puzzled students did not understand what happened to the girl and why she suddenly felt ill. The hero decided to thank his brother for calling for help, because if the girl had died, he would have been convicted of murder. As it turned out, the guy was dressed as a girl and spoke in a male voice. It turned out that it was Qian Cheng, and he was wearing a wig. The guard didn't expect him to wear women's clothes and walk around in the girls' dormitory. The guards immediately took away the insolent man who dared to enter the women's dormitory. The guards had to take him to the checkpoint so that he could wait there for the police to arrive. The security guard understood that Qian Cheng was really brave, because he dressed in women's clothes and snuck in like that. This time she would be better at keeping an eye on the intruders. Looking around, she remembered that there was another guy in the room who had come here uninvited. It was Shiniko Yura, who meanwhile was kissing an unfamiliar girl. The stunned woman did not understand what this little guy was doing. It turned out that he was doing artificial respiration. Thanks to acupuncture, after a while, her health would no longer be in danger. The girl started screaming, saying that Qian Cheng should not kill her, but the guy calmed her down, saying that she was already safe, and her killer had been arrested. Having woken up, the student immediately wanted to ask who saved her. Her savior was simply walking by and heard a weak cry for help, so he rushed to save her, and it's good that he came on time, because otherwise, she would have already died. It all happened so that the girl simply took time off from physical education to take medicine. When someone went after her, it was Qian Cheng, and tried to kill the girl. Suddenly, the hero received a message from the monkey, who wrote that everything was very bad, because the bear was being beaten on the playground. Hearing gratitude from the girl, the hero immediately went to help, because he had to help his friends. Everyone who saw this fight shouted for Guan Tongsa to stop, because in this way he could kill an innocent guy. After all, he was just looking at the girls training, and could not know that one of them would turn out to be his girlfriend. This made the man angry because after breaking a couple of his ribs, his tiny brain would definitely remember this. At that very moment, Shiniko Yura decided to stand up for his friend, and told Mr. that this was too cruel. That is why he hit the insolent person with all his might who dared to beat his friend. Then the man saw another fighter, and realized that he was really very fast, and his aura was different from the aura of others. His friends wanted the guy to get revenge and hoped that the fight would continue. But the guy drew attention to the fact that teacher Tong should educate her students and talk about justice, because his brother was beaten by him, and he wanted to resolve the misunderstanding in a duel. On the contrary, if her student was injured, then it would be called misunderstanding. Tong immediately started talking about how his brother was beaten by Master Guan from the Taekwondo club. Their school's Taekwondo club is very powerful, even the deputy director must put up with his three-pointer. Guan Ping Tongsa is the 5th Taekwondo master, and his father is a mid-level leader in the business market. It is said that he is a very powerful person, few in the school dare to offend him, so they cannot provoke him. Therefore, the teacher strongly asked the doctor not to be so impulsive with him. The brave guy approached the scoundrel and said that he had offended his brother, so he needed to kneel down and apologize. The huge man believed that this would not happen, which is why he wanted to give Shiniko Yura the opportunity to taste his fist. Suddenly, the hero decided to stop the idea, but Guan Ping Tongsa hinted that his fist would not wait long. At the same moment, he began to take something out of his pocket. It was a wig, which he immediately put on. So he actually prepared for a fight and was ready to fight. Due to the fact that Shiniko Yura is a cosplayer, Guan Ping Tongsa wanted to make him a real handsome man. The first attack was repelled, and the guy was not at all excited about the fight because he had 5 years of experience. It's a sign of respect that he uses his 5.5 years of experience and skills to not disappoint him. Such a sight was truly amazing, because the doctor can heal and is proficient in martial arts. It is not surprising that he can compete with Guanping Tunisia. All this time they continued to fight, and no one could win. But all this time they were being watched by some mysterious guy who was licking his hand. He was really very strange, and he seemed to enjoy watching the fight. Meanwhile, Guanping Tongsa continued to fight with the main character. I think he will win now, and considered his opponent quite interesting. Tong asked the doctor to be more careful, because now the strongest technique of the Taekwondo club was used. The girl heard that he used this technique to defeat an adult bull. An ordinary person would never survive such a blow. He uses it on Dr. Xiong. This is very bad. The hero was ready for any attack, and was never going to lose, because his blow would help make a counterattack. Today they wanted to teach each other a lesson. Shuniko Yu punched with all his strength right between the legs. This style was called the 8th Li Bai style. With his hands he could literally crush chicken eggs. All this time, Guanping Tongsa was in incredible pain. He screamed with fear and hatred for his opponent, but could not do anything. Fortunately, it turned out that the girl was worrying in vain, because the doctor was easily able to defeat this impudent person. The exhausted Taekwondo master fell to his knees and was completely defeated. He held his hands between his legs and said that this was the most vile technique that had been used against him. Shuniko Yu decided to give him advice, saying that he shouldn't raise his legs so high in the future, because it would be too painful, and he left this wig for him as a souvenir. The mysterious guy continued to watch all this time, but when the fight ended, he thought that he could still meet the guy who won. Coming closer to the girl, the hero admitted that the teacher was indeed right, and there was a misunderstanding. If she allowed, then the guy was going to take his friends for treatment. The embittered master wanted to know the boy's name because he wanted to find him later. Turning around, the guy said that his name is Shuniko Yu, and he can find him at any time. He now has a very serious injury, and it is better to stop saying nonsense, and let people take him to the hospital. The disciples immediately began to drag their master because he could not even move. Fortunately, the friends were safe and sound and were no longer in danger. Unexpectedly, someone called the hero, and he decided to answer the call. She was an embittered tenant because Shuniko Yu promised her that he would cook dinner, but dinner never happened. Because he forgot about this, he immediately began to jump like a frog, and asked the monkey to take care of the bear, because he had urgent matters. After some time, he jumped to his house, after which he decided to go inside. Turning to the fat hostess, the hero said that he had arrived and apologized for being late. There were a huge number of people visiting, and they were all dying of hunger. In their company there was also another unfamiliar girl who greeted Shuniko Yu, introducing herself as Jiao Langting. The other guests were named Ru Jiong and her boyfriend named Ling Tianxiang. They are the woman's tenants and live nearby. She told them that the guy cooks well, and specially invited them to dinner. That is why Shuniko Yu should show a master class in cooking. Having gathered all his skills, the hero said that there is no need to doubt him, because there are so many beautiful girls here, and he will do everything in the best possible way. With incredibly fast movements of his hands, he began to prepare for dinner, and with great speed he prepared food in order to feed the guests. After a few minutes, he apologized for the wait, although he wanted to cook more dishes, but the ingredients were not enough, so he only prepared 20 dishes. Having placed all the food on the table, he wished the guests bon appetit. Everyone, without exception, tried the food and thought it was incredibly tasty. The hero really had excellent cooking skills and they should be happy that they could taste such wonderful dishes. One of the girls even felt that Shuniko Yu's dishes were better than the dishes she makes at her restaurant, and she wanted to talk to her boss to recommend the heroes as a chef with a salary of 4,000 or 5,000 per month. The hero refused such an offer, because he said that he had already found a job and would start it in a few days. One of the men said that the guy didn't even go to school and had no education, so he didn't understand what kind of job he could find other than as a cleaner. The girl was amazed that her boyfriend was so impolite, although he and the girl both graduated from Shanghai University. Despite this, even they had difficulty finding work in Shanghai. Shuniko Yu has no education, and it is unknown what kind of work he can find, and only cleaners or waiters in small restaurants are required with such a track record. The woman also stood up for the guy, saying that he shouldn't say such offensive words, because it's not his fault that he is now without education. Suddenly, Shuniko Yu said that this was really not the best job. They all believed that it was impossible to find a job without a good education, because all the guests had spent a lot of time to work for the Dragon Group, which is definitely the best employer in Shanghai. Hearing this, everyone else was truly amazed because Dragon Group was a prestigious organization. Dragon Group is a company founded by Long Yun-chen, one of the 4 richest people in Shanghai. In the ranking of enterprises in their city, it is certainly one of the top 3, all graduates want to work there. The salary there was also quite good, around 7,000 yuan per month. The guests were really very interested in how much Mr. Shuniko Ure would earn in his new job. The guy immediately admitted that he would not receive very much. Hearing that Shuniko Ure was guaranteed to receive 10,000 yuan a month, everyone was simply shocked. They did not understand how this was possible, how a person who came from the village, without education or a diploma, could find such a well-paid job. At first, of course, he refused, and they were not going to give him an advance, but he still gave his fat landlady money in the amount of 3,000 yuan in order to pay the rent. The stunned man continued to watch as the guy simply threw money at him. The money fell on the table and was not far from the woman. This outcome of events greatly pleased the woman, because it was simply incredible, and everyone believed that Shuniko Ure was indeed very strong. Suddenly, the man decided to challenge the hero, asking the hero how much he could drink, because he was given the nickname 80 glasses, because he once defeated the Oktoberfest champion. Without thinking twice, the hero said that he could drink about 4 glasses. This answer really surprised the man, because it was funny, as if the young man didn't know how to drink alcohol at all. After going to work, he would need entertainment, because how could anyone do without a small amount of alcohol? An hour later there were many bottles of beer on the table. A drunk man shouted that if Shuniko Ure doesn't know how to drink, then you shouldn't drink. If you drink again, you'll see the king. Every time her boyfriend got drunk, pretended to be cool, and then lost consciousness. If he doesn't know how to drink, then he obviously shouldn't do it. Ling Tianxiang was too arrogant and didn't listen to what the girls told him, and he embarrassed everyone at the university. One day, Shuniko Ure also wanted to experience what it was like to be drunk. At the same time, the girl noticed that brother drank twice as much as Ling Tian, and everything was fine, so it was unclear why he lied to him that he could only drink 4 glasses. But it was not a lie, because he misunderstood his intention to quit drinking without a middle finger. It was not too early, but the hero decided to return to his place, and asked Yang Ji to take his time, because the fat lady would be able to prepare more delicious food. Some time later, someone started knocking on the main character's front door. Suddenly the door opened because it wasn't even locked, and behind her was Yusi, who came to her savior. The girl behind immediately wanted to know about her friend's condition, since she shouldn't have left the house for a while, but she was fine. She felt much better, so she went out for a walk, and also remembered that Shuniko Ure lived here, so she decided to come in and talk. One of the roommates introduced her tenant and said that she cooks very tasty. Due to the fact that Yusi has not eaten anything, she can go inside and eat with them. Some time later, Yusi had eaten a lot of delicious food, because the food cooked by Shuniko Ure's older brother was really very tasty, as if he was studying to be a chef. It seemed that he knew about cooking quite recently. He mainly studied Chinese medicine, and is best at treating diseases and saving people, especially when girls are found losing consciousness. Only artificial respiration can save them. At that very second, the lady noticed that Yusi immediately blushed after these words. Together with their mother, they decided that it was time to finish, and they would go to move around in the kitchen. Confused, the girl meanwhile wanted to find out what was happening here, and what exactly Shuniko Ure did to her this morning. After thinking a little, the guy decided to ask the student what she was talking about. In the morning, when she fainted on the sports ground, she wanted to know how she was saved. Shuniko Ure immediately remembered the girl who fainted. During the rescue, it didn't matter to him what she looked like, so the guy first apologized. And since he remembered who was sitting in front of him, the hero decided to tell him that artificial respiration mainly helped. Watching how the student reacted, it seemed to the guy that she wanted to tell him something. Sighing heavily, the girl decided to confess, and she admitted that she wanted to find out the truth about what happened to her. She needs to decide for herself whether she wants to hear the truth or a lie more. The falsehood is that she immediately needs to be hospitalized and perhaps she will be safe. But the truth is that, except him, no one can save her. The lady immediately thought this was absurd, because the last time Dr. Xiong saved her, and perhaps took advantage of the moment, she can close her eyes to this, but warns him not to try it again, otherwise who knows what her father will do. She has already said everything she wanted, so she leaves. At the same time, Shuniko Yur must draw conclusions on his own. A good-natured classmate wished the girl a good day and asked her to come again. The girl also loved gossip, and wanted to find out from her brother what was going on between them, as if there was some kind of romance. The guy, who did not understand anything, continued to look at the lady and said that he would not gossip with her. Even her mother wanted to know what was happening here. Suddenly, leaving the house, she saw Shuniko Yur committing an unthinkable act. Such behavior was unacceptable for a woman, and she took revenge on the scoundrel who dared to touch her daughter. With all her might, she hit the guy right in the face and ordered him to forget about this house. This whole thing is really too confusing. It's better to go back to the room first to resolve Maoyushi's issue. Judging by the color of her face, her condition has improved, and by her appearance, it seems that she has taken about 30 types of Chinese medicine. Judging by these 30 drugs, we can conclude that a person who takes a prescription cannot cure a disease, he can only suppress it with drugs. However, as the body produces antibodies, the effectiveness of the drugs will decrease. All this will again lead to a dead end. Unfortunately, the main character did not have a good solution, and he can only wait. Suddenly, someone nearby started screaming from a neighboring apartment, and the guy immediately realized that the neighbors were quarreling. While trying to eavesdrop on the conversation, he found out that they were talking about Shuniko Yur, as if he was having a romance with some girl. The man believed that his girlfriend was having an affair, and he saw the way she looked at him while eating. Because he believed his girlfriend was cheating, he punched her in the face as hard as he could, and he also shouted that she should not dare to come into his sight again, because she was a cheater. Meanwhile, Shuniko Yur was thinking that it was incomprehensible to hit such a beautiful girl, and the one who did it was not a man. Starting to cry, the lady was amazed by this behavior, because she could not expect this from her boyfriend, because of which she immediately wanted to break up, because she dated this scoundrel for 3 years, and he beat her all these years. All during this time he suspected her of cheating. If she had realized this earlier, she would have left long ago, so there is no point in stopping her. The scoundrel continued to stop the girl. They say that all this is happening for the last time, and he will correct himself. Suddenly, on the path along which the girl was walking, several people appeared and immediately noticed her. The unsuspecting girl asked the guys what they were doing here and why they even approached her. But they didn't want to introduce themselves, because it doesn't matter who they are, the important thing is that they have now met their fate, so they invited the girl to come with them. One of the villains came closer, saying that the girl was very beautiful, but the lady continued to beg to be released quickly. Taking out a knife, the hooligan said that such behavior was very annoying, and there was no need to bother the police. If she resisted, then he was going to disfigure her beautiful face with a knife. Meanwhile, her boyfriend turned to one of the hooligans. He gave money in the hope that the girl would be released and spared. But this girl should stay, because they still wanted to have fun with her, and if the guy didn't leave, they would show him a knife game. In a panic, he began to think that he couldn't stay here. After all, he still had a career, as well as a life and a great future. He couldn't die here. And he immediately began to run away, because life was more valuable to him than the honor and dignity of a man. Lino Zhu Jun followed this scoundrel and expected him to be such a creature. The scoundrel came up from behind and wanted to see how quickly her boyfriend ran away. Such a person cannot be trusted, and she would be better off with her older brother, because he would treat her better. Suddenly, someone else came up and ordered the scoundrel to take his dirty hands off the girl. It was Shuniko Yur who ordered to stop because the lady was scared and it needed to stop. One of the hooligans immediately recognized the scammer who was with him on the bus. First they wanted to tie up the girl and then punish this guy. They all believed that this meeting would end badly for Shuniko Yur, but they still did not know how much power an ordinary guy would have. One of the gang members threatened him with a knife, saying that this guy himself came here, and trampled his face into the dirt on the bus, and now he will take revenge on him, period. The worried girl continued to scream that they had knives and they needed to be careful. Suddenly, the guy recognized the scoundrel who was with him on the bus. Then he really beat him very well and humiliated him. Using one of the striking techniques, the hero used the light strike technique. From such a blow the scoundrel immediately lost his mind and began to rave. At the same time, he had already begun to beat the next hooligan so that they would not even think about attacking him from behind. The main bandit all this time was watching the guy as he fought and defeated his friends. Then he realized that he had finally met a worthy opponent, and today he was going to play with him. He should be confident that Brother Nog would allow him to feel the power of his fists. As it turned out, the main bandit is not so strong, and fell ill after only 3 hits. Fortunately, the bandits left, and Shiniko Yur returned Lino Zhu Jun her wallet, and was also going to take her to the hotel. It turned out that there was no money in the wallet, because the bandits took them. Realizing this, the guy realized that he was in such a hurry that he did not have time to take the money, and wanted to understand whether he should also keep company for the whole night, because Lin Tian beat her, and he is afraid that she will start a conversation about this. Confused, the lady herself began to ask to spend the night with her savior. Because she had absolutely nowhere to spend the night, that's why she asked Shiniko Yur to spend the night together. Without hesitation, he agreed, and together the couple was going to go to his room to sleep and do acupuncture, and also the girl could sleep on his bed and he would sleep on the floor. The light in the lady's room was on, which meant that Lin Tian had returned home safely. A little worried, the girl asked you to take it now, and she herself was going to look for a public toilet and then come. All because she wanted to go and look after Lin Tian, because she was interested in what he was doing there. Outside the door, she heard the voice of her boyfriend and his boss, and they were talking about how they were doing something in the office, so they could do it in the apartment. There was indeed another woman in the apartment, who was the scoundrel's boss. He shouted that he left his wife because she was having an affair with Shiniko Yur, who is next door, and allowed her to leave. And now he can show his true feelings, and is ready to devote his whole life just to love and protect his boss. Listening to all this, the lady realized that earlier she had fallen for this nonsense, and now another unfortunate girl would fall for these words. Today, the boss promised to be 100 times better than this Shaolino Zhu Jun, because she was ready to do anything for her master. Embarrassed by these words, Ling Tian knew that she needed to leave here, but she still didn't care about her ex-boyfriend because she wanted to show that she was much happier after breaking up. Opening the door, the girl found Shiniko Yur, who had already disinfected the needle, and wanted to ask her to show her injury. As it turned out, because of her clothes she could not be seen. At that moment, the girl decided to take off her clothes in order to make it easier to work with the wound. Thus, lady wanted to start, but Shiniko Yur could hardly stand it, and did not understand why she was so impulsive. Before starting the procedure, the guy still wanted to make it clear that he was not a swindler who took advantage of the opportunity. That's why he asked to get dressed first, because he roughly remembered where the wound was. Events continued to happen after an hour of treatment. Lady felt much better and now he could remove his hands, but he should wait a minute because this is the last stage of the massage, which will help improve blood circulation and reduce swelling. And this was indeed the case, because after looking in the mirror, the girl discovered that the treatment had worked really well, and the wound had practically disappeared. The patient herself also did well, because usually people are scared for a very long time, and her figure is also incredibly beautiful. Due to the fact that the bed is quite large, they could lie down together, because lying on the floor is quite harmful. Besides, the girl stayed in his room and couldn't allow it. Shiniko Yur was grateful for such trust, which is why he wasn't going to pay attention to the fact that they would sleep together. Lying on the bed, it seemed to him that for Lino Zhu Jun he was already a good person, but in the current situation, he, as a gentleman, cannot do anything about it. And he can't take advantage of people's weaknesses, let alone go to school tomorrow, because the guy has sealed his inner strength. Some time later, events continued the next day. Lino Zhu Jun woke up and thought that she needed to find a landlord to rent a new apartment. Going out into the entrance of the house, the girl discovered her ex-boyfriend and her new girlfriend. The scoundrel wanted to know why Lino Zhu Jun left Shiniko Yur's apartment. After all, they had recently broken up, and the girl had moved in with her new boyfriend, so the couple wanted to find out what they were doing that night. Although thanks to the breakup, now the ex-boyfriend could enjoy his relationship with Xiao Yan, and for this they thanked Lino Zhu Jun. Suddenly, someone behind him also hugged Lino Zhu Jun. It was Shiniko Yur who said that he also wanted to thank Ling Tian because they broke up and now he was able to meet such a good girl, and their affairs should not bother the couple. The sneaky couple clearly did not expect this, and they immediately began to leave. The lady was very grateful to the guy, because he saved her. As it turned out, he just had to go to the school hospital today, which is why he dressed up so smartly. The situation was too urgent, so he asked not to take it too seriously and went to school. At the same time, Lino Ru-jun understood that it would be very good if Shiniko Yure's brother took this seriously. Some time later, arriving at school, the director threatened the guy and warned that if after 3 months his medical skills, which he showed earlier, were wrong, then he would immediately fly out of here. There were only 3 doctors studying Chinese medicine, and Shiniko Yura just didn't need to create problems, because the girl would be very busy at that time. Suddenly, as soon as she turned around, the hero was no longer behind. It turned out that he met his friend who also worked at this school, because Shiniko Yura had just applied for a doctor's position in the Chinese medicine department, and in the future they could become colleagues. Due to the fact that Shengguan Qianyun was finishing work soon, she invited the guy to lunch and wanted them to call at noon and meet. Without hesitation, the boy agreed, and they were going to meet at noon. Zhou Hongxin became noticeably jealous, because it only took him a few days to seduce the girl. In turn, the hero admitted that there was nothing between them, and he sincerely was only with his wife, but she did not need excuses, and she also did not want to be called a wife. Then she pointed to the school hospital, and also said that the Chinese medicine department was on the top floor. Walking inside the hospital, the guy immediately noticed that this school really needs to be strengthened, because there are a lot of beauties here. Suddenly, Shiniko Yura noticed a doctor in the corridor who I was talking about an endocrine disorder, and asked the girl to pay more attention to sleep and take care of herself, but the guy immediately noticed that this doctor was incompetent. Coming closer, the experienced doctor immediately said that this was not an endocrine disorder, and if the doctor is right, then the student is pregnant. The doctor from the school immediately told the simple guy that he was inexperienced, and unlike him, he was not a therapist. And this was indeed the case, because Shiniko Yura is a doctor of Chinese medicine. Indignant, the man immediately assumed that this guy was an intern, because he was still young, and it was unknown what he forgot in the Chinese medicine department. The incompetent man continued to say that people like him have become so bored that they themselves go around diagnosing just anyone. In turn, the hero said what he saw and made the final decision, judging by the reaction. And if the patient's health does not improve, then she must go to the Chinese medicine department to find a doctor named Shiniko Yura. The doctor tried his best to persuade the patient not to listen to this guy, and to take medications in accordance with her diagnosis. Rising to the top floor, the hero noticed the Chinese medicine department. It was not surprising that it was so empty here, because the Chinese medicine department was looked down upon. Entering the office and looking around, the guy immediately asked if anyone was here. And there really was someone there. One of the doctors hid behind a barrier and was not visible. The man's name was Xian Guan. He is the head physician of the Chinese medicine department. It is quite empty here, which is why the young man should prepare for loneliness. The guy, in turn, asked the man not to worry, because treating and saving people is his goal, and not making money. As it turned out, the elderly man continued to work here precisely according to the logic that he wanted to help people. This department must be really busy today, even though patients usually come in once every half month. Some patients started knocking on the door, and the smart guy immediately guessed that it was probably the same girl from the corridor. And it was really her, because this girl was looking for a doctor named Shiniko Yura. The surprised man immediately exclaimed that Shiniko Yura was not so bad, that on the first day the students came looking for him, and he was inside, so the girls could go inside the office. Concerned students wanted to know what the doctor told them then in the office. The smart hero immediately guessed that the girls wanted to find out if it was true that one of them was pregnant. Leaning on the back of her chair, Shiniko Yura simply replied that he thought her own body knew better about this. And if she believes Dr. Li, then there is no need to come to her, that is why Dr. Xiong cannot help her. The alarmed student nevertheless decided to talk about her illness, and said that she constantly felt very tired. Her friend, in turn, thought that this doctor was just playing with them. Then the students began to leave because they believed that the doctor was not competent, but the guy understood that it was better to do everything in a big way and try to improve the reputation of their department. 15 minutes later, one of the hospital workers said that Shiniko Yura had already received his first complaint on his first day of work, and now he was fined 1,000 yuan as a warning for the first violation. He must also apologize to the applicant personally and sign documents if he has nothing to say. Outraged, the doctor immediately began to make excuses, asking Director Chin why she was punishing him without even listening. The director didn't care at all, because this complaint was filed with patience, and his word is much more important. Looking at this whole situation, Shuniko Yur realized that the director was completely unpredictable, and it seemed that she was used to it. The guy immediately said that he could complain about her unclear beliefs and arbitrary punishment. This behavior really surprised the girl, because she did not expect that someone like him could complain about her. Rising from her workplace, the girl began to prove that someone had filed a complaint against him, and she should punish him for it. Besides, even if she judged something wrong, he cannot do anything to her because her sister is the headmaster of the school. Having asked to wait, the guy admitted that he might not complain, but it was better to talk calmly. Taking something out of his pocket, Shuniko Yur prepared something for the girl. It was a prescription for this medicine because the director is sick and she needs it. This argument angered the lady even more, and she wanted to find out why she was sick, and she believed that the doctor was sick because he was making such hasty conclusions. But then she saw that the doctor was speaking quite seriously, that this disease was very serious. Suddenly, the director really began to have chest pain, and she did not understand what was happening to her. It seems that the disease was progressing. Constantly being angry made her heart weaken, and he wasn't about to argue with her to prevent it from getting worse. I also didn't want to stimulate her illness by giving this prescription. Taking the girl in his arms, the guy understood that she was now sick, so it was necessary to use 5 silver needles to save her. The arrogant doctor and a girl he knew immediately saw the director faint and wanted to understand what had happened. Xian Yun actually arrived on time, and Shuniko Yur asked her to bring his bag from the Chinese medicine department. The embittered doctor again saw the same internet of the Chinese department, and ordered him to get lost so that he could take care of Li Ying himself. The main character really didn't like this approach, and he ordered the man to remain calm, because the patient's life is now in danger. She has fallen into a coma. If he interferes, the girl may die because of this. Meanwhile, having arrived at the department, the nurse wanted to know where the brother kept his bag. Continuing to search, she realized that she could not find her quickly, but fortunately, she still managed to successfully find the bag, but something fell out of it. It appears that a woman's bra fell out of the bag and appears to have been used numerous times. The embarrassed nurse nevertheless brought her brother the bag he asked for. Turning to the girl, the doctor immediately noticed that his nurse was blushing, but she only said that the redness on her face was due to the fact that she was running too fast. All this time the girl was thinking that her brother didn't look like a pervert who stole underwear. That's why she should find the right time to ask him about it. Because the patient's condition is deteriorating, Shuniko Yur must hurry. The doctor, meanwhile, was constantly observed by this process, because he could not leave due to the fact that the intern was holding a huge needle right in front of the director. As luck would have it, Shuniko Yur took an even larger needle and wanted to use it. It just has to be an acupuncture procedure, and if the doctor wants to thank him, he can leave a gift at the Chinese medicine department. The patient's treatment is always like this, and there is no need to worry, because she should wake up soon. Although she was so easy to anger, her body was really great. Having woken up, the woman immediately wanted to find out who saved her. The doctor immediately came to her, saying that she had fainted and her body was very weak, so she shouldn't move. Due to the fact that the girl's chest hurt very badly, she wanted to go home and rest. Meanwhile, Shuniko Yur knew that the director should have woken up by now, and he didn't know if such nonsense could make people look at the Chinese medicine department differently. Unfortunately, the path to success is full of obstacles, and he would rather meet Xianyun to eat. Suddenly, another student approached, who immediately recognized Shuniko Yur. It was a girl from the sorority house, and she heard that the doctor worked at the school hospital, so she came here. But her body has not yet fully recovered, so she needs to go to the Chinese medicine department. Arriving at the department, the doctor immediately began measuring her pulse on her arm. The worried guy understood that this girl smokes and drinks, and also goes to bed late. She is clearly ruining her body in this way. But looking at her appearance, he couldn't even imagine this, so he wanted to ask her a few questions. And he directly asked the question about why she smokes, drinks, and goes to bed late. Sighing heavily, the student admitted that his medical skills were really excellent, and she could not hide it from the doctor. For the last 2 years she worked as a waitress, and she thought about quitting, but she had to continue for 2 reasons. Firstly, since her boyfriend's family is poor, she gave him most of her money. But the girl clearly did not expect that he would lie to her and spend money on other girls, so she decided to leave him. But then, a guy came to the hostel, disguised himself as a girl, and almost killed her. Due to the fact that this problem was resolved, the doctor still did not understand why the girl was drinking. The second reason is that it belongs to Heilong Tea House. Every time she wants to resign, they always threaten her. The power of Heilong Tea House is too strong, so she can only suffer in silence. Because of these memories, the girl immediately began to cry. All this tormented her heart for a long time, and she thanked the doctor for listening to her. Fortunately, the doctor wrote her a prescription. Now the girls need to rest for half a month and return to take the exams. At the same time, the guy understood that this Heilong Tea House was involved in many bad things that happened in the city. Meanwhile, Shengguan Qianyun came and invited the hero to go to dinner with her. The benevolent girl also did not mind the hero calling his friends. Due to the fact that there were many different restaurants in this city, they could choose any of them, but Shiniko Yur did not know this area well enough, so he trusted the girl. There was a restaurant nearby that served delicious fried fish, so they all planned to go there together. At the same time, friends were discussing the problem that they still did not have beautiful girls. Fortunately, they will remain friends for life, although one of them works as a vegetable seller and the other as a butcher. It turned out that there were many girls from the university campus in this restaurant. This Hanayo fish restaurant is very famous and many students from their campus come here often. She and the bear were here for the first time, so they asked the girl to order first. Suddenly, another familiar girl named Fei Yu came up, recognized the doctor, and greeted him. She also apologized for the incident this morning because she couldn't stop her friend Han Ying from filing a complaint. The benevolent hero decided to invite the girl to sit with them, but Fei refused because she came with a guy. The couple was sitting nearby, so the joyful girl decided to introduce her new friends to the guy. It turned out that it was the same taekwondo coach, and he was incredibly angry, which is why he did not want to greet Shiniko Yur. The young lady was surprised that they knew each other, having previously enjoyed a little fun fighting each other. The doctor didn't want to bother his patient unnecessarily and was going to talk about her body later. The lady immediately realized that this guy was the taekwondo teacher on their campus, and she wanted to know why they weren't communicating with each other. At that moment, the friends decided to tell that they had fought, and Shiniko Yur won the fight. This was truly unexpected for everyone, but the hero did not admit it. They say that he is only a beginner in martial arts. The friends also remembered that Shiniko Yur had previously promised to teach them martial arts. And after a friend teaches them martial arts, rather than being taught a lesson by a taekwondo teacher. Meanwhile, the girl was trying to calm her boyfriend down, and he wanted to understand what Shiniko Yur's expression meant that he wanted to talk to the girl about her body. Even though Ping Tongsa was in a bad mood today, she still had to tell him this, and admitted that the doctor told her about some news. A little upset, the student still admitted that she was pregnant. This angered the guy even more, because he didn't understand how she could even get pregnant if every time they do this, they use contraception. Suddenly, the guy stopped laughing and said that he realized something. What he realized was that he and Shiniko Yur had conspired to take revenge on him. That is why the puzzled guy believed that the father of the child was Shiniko Yur himself. Taking out his wallet, he offered the girl 2,000 yuan, asking if she did services for money. But then he threw his wallet at her and shouted that they had been dating for a whole year, and she didn't care about him. This event angered the girl even more because she could not understand why her boyfriend reacted this way. At that same second, as if out of nowhere, the needle began to fly, and before the moment the wallet hit the girl's face, she pierced him and nailed him to the wall. The stunned couple watched as the wallet was pinned to the wall with a needle, all because a loser named Ping Tongsa raised his hand against his girlfriend, and this is unacceptable. Getting even angrier, Ping shouted at Shiniko Yur to mind his own business. And due to the fact that he did not have time to deal with him, he immediately began to leave. The hero nevertheless decided to make a bet, and if the scoundrel loses, then he will apologize to Fei Yu. And if the main character loses, he will become a slave to the scoundrel for a whole month. If he wins, the guy will be his slave for 1 month and will obey all his commands. They decided to bet that the black bear would defeat the villain in 3 months. The impudent man knew that Shiniko Yur had 2 subordinates, but they could not compete with him, but still he accepted the challenge, and was looking forward to it, because he wanted to see what he could do with this garbage in 3 months. Friends immediately began to say that Bear was beaten with him on the sports ground, but there is no need to worry, because if he trains hard, 2 months will be enough. By doing martial arts, Bear would also be able to easily find a girlfriend because this activity would definitely help build muscle, and they all wanted to train now. The angry scoundrel just wanted to see how he would deal with his friend in 3 months, and the black bear had to train hard to beat this spew. Approaching closer to the girl, Shiniko Yur wanted to make sure that Fei Yu was really okay. The girl, in turn, thanked the savior. Then she said that she wanted to be sure of her pregnancy. If this was true, then she should have an abortion. As it turned out, the doctor has a safer method, and there is no need to perform an abortion in this case. The puzzled girl still wanted to think first before making such serious decisions. When the bear saw the girl, he immediately wanted to meet her, even though she was a patient of his best friend. It also turned out that the bear was beaten up by Fei Yu's Ping Tongsa for the last time, and everyone immediately guessed that the bear really liked the girl very much. As if nothing had happened, Shiniko Yur asked his friend to pay for the food, and he, in turn, would find an opportunity and introduce them. In total, the damage amounted to 2,400 yuan, and the bear decided to pay for all the costs. Meanwhile, the monkey said that Shiniko Yur is a pervert. He loves to play with girls since childhood, so he always received it from his grandfather. A moment later, the hero hit his friend on the head and asked the girl not to listen to this nonsense, because all his life he was only a good child. But the bear continued to say that when the guy was 10 years old, he looked at a beautiful widow in their village while swimming and kissed her on the lips when she fell asleep. The stunned girl could not believe what she heard and was immediately frightened. As it turns out, Widow Wang is actually a young girl who was raised by an old man in their village, and she was only 12 years old. The old man died when she was 14, so they kept calling her the widow. Then he kissed her because she wanted to go alone and he wanted to leave memories of her. The people in the village were fooled by this and he didn't see her again for 10 years, she must be married. The friend still believed that fate should bring them together, but Shiniko Yur didn't want to think too much about it, and planned to go with her friends to the Chinese medicine department to teach them some basic skills. In turn, the bear understood that it was time to do something, although there were still 3 months left before the battle. All this time, Boss was hiding behind the screen because she didn't want to be seen. She literally asked the staff in the future to let her know every time they come. It turned out that it was Widow Wang, and she couldn't believe her eyes that she met Shiniko Yur, as if they were connected by fate. Some time later, they were going over the basic techniques. After the bear mastered martial arts, he would get double the result. His friends were still going to believe him and fight with an experienced fighter. Both friends should practice at least 40 minutes a day, then it will work in a week, and they practice stretching near the pole. At the same time, the hero understood that he should not be blamed, because this whole situation happened precisely because of them. Suddenly, Chiu Hongxin started calling Shiniko Yura on the phone, and the hero's friends already felt the muscles that were gradually beginning to increase. Hoping that his girlfriend had changed her mind and wanted to marry him, he answered the call. But that was not the case, and she didn't have time to argue with him, so she asked him to tell the truth about what happened between him and Qin Li this morning. Manager Qin had problems with his lifestyle as well as his health. In addition, the director also had something else for the doctor. In the afternoon, Dr. Miaoren invited Shiniko Yur to dinner, and Chiu Hongxin asked him to come. As it turned out, the director wanted to invite someone else to the meeting, and everyone would meet together. The puzzled doctor wanted to ask the director why she hated Shiniko Yur so much, even though their families knew each other. This happened because the girl was simply not used to such dirty behavior, that's why she hated it. Meanwhile, Shiniko Yur was sneezing while walking along one of the streets, and realized that someone was thinking about him. Suddenly, a girl approached him from behind and recognized the doctor. She was really happy about this coincidence, and the restless doctor wanted to know where the girl was going after all. The patient's face became paler every day, and the doctor advised her to quit her job as soon as possible. Fortunately, Qian Lin said that the doctor didn't need to worry about her because she wanted to quit today. But in order to be released, she must first pay, and then she can safely leave. Because the girl was in a hurry, she began to rush. Shiniko Yur in turn told her to be careful. This girl is really beautiful, but unfortunately, he and Chiu Hongxin are already engaged. I sigh heavily. The guy thought about the fact that his grandfather wanted him to marry such a cruel woman. In fact, the resignation was cancelled, and he now works as a doctor at the university. Suddenly, someone else came up behind him and recognized the doctor. It was Miao Zhen, who immediately recognized the guy and congratulated him on his transfer to the university hospital. In the future they will be partners. The girl was sure that in less than 2 months, he would become a famous doctor in this hospital. The heroes were still not interested in this, and he wanted to know where they would go for dinner. Chiu Hongxin ordered a place for them to eat. This is a grilled fish restaurant. It was Chiu's grilled fish restaurant. The director had made a reservation there. Despite the fact that the hero ate grilled fish, because he is accompanied by a beautiful woman, he has nothing against going there again. Suddenly, Shuniko Yu noticed something very strange. Namely, that Qianlin goes along with the scoundrel with whom the guy fought before. I understand everything that's happening. He just thought that he needed to forget about all this, because she should be fine, and it's better to go to the restaurant first. All this time, Shuniko Yu asked Miao Ren if Chiu Hongxin wanted to make peace with him, but she was waiting in the front room. If he hurried, he could find out about it himself. Walking into that very room, the hero took a flower with him and hoped that he could find out from the director what she thought about their relationship. He also apologized to his dear girlfriend for keeping her waiting so long. Unfortunately, something happened that the guy could not have expected. Along with the girl was Long, who was going to marry her. They all sat down at the table together and knew each other, so there was no need to be so careful. The doctor tried to maintain a dialogue, but she understood that the atmosphere here was not the best, although she knew that she would still break the silence. And she decided to first turn to Chiu Hongxin, asking why Director Long was invited here, although he is such a busy person. This VIP room is not that easy to book. It usually takes several weeks to get in line. Thanks to Mr. Long and his connections, they can now use it. Long wanted to ask the doctor if she liked the food, and also added that he would do everything to create a good impression for Chiu Hongxin. The food was indeed very tasty, and Shuniko Yu already ate half of the entire meal. Watching everything happen, Long knew what a peasant was like. He must have never been to such places, so he was going to humiliate him in front of Chiu Hongxin because it should be funny. Then he decided to offer the guy to take all these dishes if he liked them so much. Shuniko Yu did not mind, so he took all the food into a small bag and was incredibly happy. Angry, the girl wanted to ask the hero what he was doing and why he was acting so shamelessly. Shuniko Yu asked not to blame him because he gave the last 3,000 yuan to his landlord and now he has no money for food. Soon after this, he began to cry and asked Chiu Hongxin if she could give him money, because if she did not, he would die of starvation. The puzzled girl wanted to understand how a doctor can live in a room measuring 30 square meters, but the guy only added that if one person lives, then this is still normal. Rich Long only added that people are poor for a reason, for example, because of laziness. The hero completely agreed and asked Mr. whether he really made such serious efforts to be with such a huge amount of money. Angry at this question, Long hit the table with all his might and shouted that he had achieved everything himself, and Shuniko Yu was not capable of anything. Watching everything that was happening, Chiu Hongxin couldn't expect that Long would fool Shuniko Yu. No matter how hard Shuniko Yu tried, she had to call off this engagement. The scoundrel, in turn, thought that Shuniko Yu and Chiu Hongxin would not make a good couple, so he needed to retreat. Surprised by this statement, the guy asked to repeat this statement, because he could not believe that they were telling him this. Without hesitation, Long repeated this, saying that he really loved Chiu Hongxin. Coming closer to the scoundrel, Shuniko Yu felt that Mr. Long had been lying all this time. As she continued to listen to the dialogue, Chiu Hongxin realized that Long was so stupid, even though he was the CEO, that he couldn't even answer a hillbilly like Shuniko Yu. Shuniko Yu, I decided to wish everyone a bon appetit, and go and get some drinks myself. Walking down the corridor, the guy was going to take milk with Dad for Hong Xian and yogurt for Miao Ren. But suddenly, he heard a familiar voice, someone saying that some girl had finally gotten drunk. These were the same scoundrels, and next to them was a student who was screaming that she had already drunk enough, so she wanted to quit this job. The villains wanted to do terrible things to the girl and treated her like an object. Suddenly, as if out of nowhere, Shuniko Yu appeared, who was incredibly glad to meet these scoundrels. Thus, he again decided to teach these scoundrels a lesson, and understood why his patients felt bad, because it all happened because of them. Literally a minute later, all the scoundrels were defeated, and the heroes threw them out of the room in which they mocked the girl. Fortunately, he helped her in time, otherwise it might have been too late. Suddenly, behind them, the girl began to climb towards the doctor, recognizing him. She thanked him and wanted to serve him today as compensation. A stunned doctor asked his patient to behave normally because she had been drinking. As it turned out, the girl was almost sober, because she only drank a bottle of beer. And the doctor turned out to be the only one who treats her well, the others only tried to deceive her, and these scoundrels slipped drugs into her alcohol. Aware of the whole situation, Shiniko Yur understood that if the girl continued to behave like this, he would lose control. Continuing to hug the girl, he apologized to her. Raising Lady in his arms, he said that these 2 needles would make her fall asleep for a while, and also remove alcohol from the blood. And the best solution would be to take her to the VIP room so that she can come to her senses there. Some time later, events continued in the VIP room. The girls recognized their student, and because she drank a lot, after a while she lost consciousness. The hero decided to talk about how he came across a girl, while she was being harassed by 2 perverts and he saved her. Chiu Hongshin did not appreciate this act, saying that he just wanted to take advantage of her. Since the director doubted his good honesty, she could interrogate the girl herself as soon as she woke up. A few minutes later, the worried girl woke up and had a very bad headache. Chiu Hongshin immediately wanted to ask the student whether Shiniko Yur had gotten her drunk. Suddenly, the girl immediately ran to hug the doctor and shouted that it was very good that he was here, because if it weren't for him, the end of her life would have come. Events continued not far from the restaurant where the heroes were. An unknown and brutal man began to walk there. It was Mr. De Xiong. They complained to him because Shiniko Yur beat them and also took the girl away from the karaoke room. The gang leader ordered his subordinates to beat the hero as hard as possible. Meanwhile, Shiniko Yur decided to go outside, and the bandits immediately noticed this. One of the scoundrels pointed a finger at him and said that this was the same scoundrel, which is why the boss wanted to deal with him. Swinging a baseball bat, the scoundrel wanted to make a powerful blow directly to the main character's head. Suddenly, Shiniko Yur decided to bend down to pick something up from the ground, and the blow struck the person who was walking behind him. This blow was made directly to Long, and Shiniko Yur was really lucky because he was just leaving the restaurant and found 1 yuan. The boss of the hooligans immediately recognized Long because they knew each other firsthand, and Long was his boss. The scoundrel only began to make excuses, saying that he did it by accident and did not intend to fight Long. This was clearly a misunderstanding, because many people were standing behind the scoundrel, and Long thought that this was an attempt on his life. Also, Shiniko Yur decided to point out the scoundrel who forced the student to do this work, as the main one. Chiu Hongshin should do something about it. The gentleman said that Xian's problems and his problems, so he ordered a contract to be given between him and this student. Now Long has burned this contract and forbade the bully to see this student. Fortunately, the girl was truly safe now, and she thanked Shiniko Yur again, although he mentioned that Mr. Long needed gratitude. Chiu Hongshin meanwhile, she was thinking that her boyfriend was not as bad as she thought. Was she really mistaken about him? Some time later, Long began to leave, but the situation had not yet been fully resolved. The scoundrel decided to stop the main character, telling him that he could not leave just like that. Suddenly, the bully realized that Shiniko Yur was very angry about something. He got angry because he dropped the bag of his food. Like a wild tiger, he looked at the scoundrel and told him that he had spoiled a month's supply of food. The atmosphere was indeed very heavy, and it was extremely difficult for the scoundrel to speak. Although the impudent man apologized, Shiniko Yur hit him on the head with all his might, because apologies were clearly inappropriate here. From such a blow, the criminal fell to his knees, and the ground shook under him. Now the impudent man better not move, because his bones are broken. This is the punishment for eating the hero. Like the big boss, he must be polite, and should not touch strangers' shoulders. From that day on, the boss never wanted to remember what happened today again, and ordered everyone to never talk to him about it. Finding his glasses, but continuing to tremble with fear, he was just about to leave here. The bullies started to pick up their boss because all his bones were broken. Meanwhile, Miao Ren, along with Shiniko Yur, were returning from the restaurant, and the hero said that his home was about 30 kilometers away, so they decided to ask Chiu Hongshin to give them a ride. Long wanted to ask Chiu Hongshin to stay with him tonight because he would be worried if the girl went with her friends. The indifferent girl only said that he should mind his own business, and she would contact him later. After hearing this answer, Long began to think that Chiu Hongshin Corporation had succeeded, so she began to brag, but it was worth waiting until their companies merged into one and he would teach a lesson. Chiu Hongshin received the car as a gift from her mother, who gave her a Rolls-Royce. Everyone really appreciated this car because it was incredibly beautiful. Such a car cost at least 500,000 yuan, and it was known that the girl's family was incredibly rich. In turn, Miaojin said that the doctor is wrong, and he jokes very funny, this car is a limited edition of Bentley from last year, there are only 20 such cars in the whole world. Currently, one such machine costs 7 or 8 million yuan. His poverty really limited his imagination, and he couldn't believe that a car could cost so much. As long as the hero agreed to the girl's proposal, she could transfer him 100 million yuan, and thus make him rich. But the guy didn't want this at all, because he loves beauty and talent more, moreover, if this happens, he will not become happier. The alarmed girl said that he still shouldn't worry, because their wedding would not happen. The alley in front of them was too narrow, so they planned to walk further. Some time later, they found themselves not far from Shiniko Yure's house. Everyone was truly amazed at the disgusting conditions in which the doctor lived. Suddenly, the director noticed something that was stuck on the wall. It was an advertisement with very interesting content that made the girl blush. She could not look at the wall with such content, and began to pass by. Thus, Shiniko Yure invited the girls inside, saying that he lived here. Suddenly, someone was in the bathroom and spoke to the hero, saying that the renovations in her home had not yet been completed, so she could not move out. This happened because Shiniko Yure forgot that Lino Zhu Jun was now living at his home. Coming out of the shower, the girl said that today she wanted to sleep in his room. Seeing the lady who was only wrapped in a robe, everyone was simply dumbfounded. The alarmed girl wanted to understand who all these people were. Meanwhile, Chiu Hongshin started yelling at the guy, asking who this girl was, because they were supposed to have a wedding, and he couldn't even tell who she was. Because the girl could not stand it, she decided to tell everything to her grandfather. Lino Zhu Jun in turn understood that she was to blame for this situation, but the guy understood everything, and did not blame her, because he was going to explain the whole situation later. Unexpectedly, a student came up and told the doctor that she believed him, and the hero was truly amazed that she stayed. Fortunately, the heroes decided to take her to the dorm, because it was already very late, and it was dangerous to go alone. Going out into the street, the hero and the student noticed a couple who were drunk. The man immediately noticed the waitress from the establishment and told Dr. Shiniko Yura that he was lucky, because he looked at him and saw that he had found himself a waitress girl, and this is very ridiculous. The student also recognized him, saying that he often came to their restaurant. He often went to the restaurant, moreover, he has a good relationship with one girl named Xu Hua, and she heard that every time he goes to the restaurant, he takes her for the night, but she doesn't know what they are doing there are engaged. His madam clearly needs to be careful, because the guy is a terrible womanizer, and he might catch something. The ridiculous guy started running after his girlfriend because she couldn't bear to listen to this anymore and realized that she didn't want to date such a scoundrel. The door closed in front of the man, and his girlfriend no longer wanted to see him. Suddenly, Lino Zhu Jun opened the door and thought that the doctor had already returned, but it was just her ex, and she immediately closed the door on him. Suddenly, the door opened again, and the girl even decided to spit at the scoundrel so that he would know that he should not behave like that. The enraged man immediately realized that it was Shiniko Yure who was to blame for this whole situation. Some time later, the student and the doctor reached the school. Her contracts were terminated today, so she no longer has to work in the restaurant, and she also needs to get more rest, and follow a routine, and not drink or smoke. The lady was truly grateful and knew what the doctor had done for her to save her. She really was very grateful to him, and thanked him with all her heart, although she is his patient, and he had to do it. At the same time, the girl discovered someone's hand sticking out of the bush. With horror, they discovered that there was a man in the bushes. The concerned girl wanted to call the police because she thought the man was no longer alive. It turned out that it was Yang Fei, who had several bottles of wine next to her, and she was lying right on the street very late. This girl was in the same school as a student, and she must have been blackout drunk. The doctor still wanted to help the patient, and decided to do acupuncture to wake her up. After acupuncture, the girl immediately woke up and began screaming in pain. The surprised lady immediately realized that the same procedure had been applied to her to wake up. And this was indeed true, but the doctor used only 2 needles. Fortunately, the girl quickly woke up and began to gradually come to her senses. She apologized for doubting the hero because he was indeed right that she was pregnant. Starting to cry, she exclaimed that she wanted the doctor to help her have an abortion. Thinking about everything that was happening, the student realized that perhaps the doctor was the father of the child. But the lady also understood that he was the director's fiancé, and they were engaged. Shiniko Yur meanwhile, he questioned the patient, saying that she takes very bad care of herself and drinks during pregnancy. The girl decided to have an abortion. Drinking or not drinking does not matter at all, because she just wanted to forget about her problems. The girl also hated the father of her child and left him because she was still a schoolgirl and couldn't leave her child. Wiping the girl's tears, the guy asked her if she wanted revenge. If the doctor helps her, then she was even going to pay him, but her ex-boyfriend's father is the vice president of the public security department and he is very influential. Due to the fact that the girl's desire is so great, there will be no problems, and if she remembers, then she has a friend, and he is going to defeat her ex. There is no need to worry because your friend is training, but if the girl encourages him, it will be much better. After which, the heroes decided to ask their friend how his practice was going and whether there was any success. They practice all the time, and Shiniko Yur can really be sure that this will help them defeat the scoundrel. Unexpectedly, the hero handed the girl a smartphone so that she could invite the bear to dinner. And then she actually said that she had placed and insistently asked to defeat her ex. The guy in love didn't mind at all, and was ready to do anything for such a beautiful girl. Dismissing his friend, he continued training to become stronger. He told Fei Yu not to worry, because 3 months later, her ex would be easily defeated. That is why the scoundrel will stand and apologize on his knees. The power of love is really great, and the bear tries very hard. If he can win, then the girl should not forget to invite him to dinner. Tired Shiniko Yur nevertheless decided to return home in order to get at least a little rest, and tomorrow afternoon they would see each other again. Although he had recently returned to the city, and had already found an incredibly huge number of problems, what his grandfather told him was true. The men in their family always solve not only their own problems. Suddenly, the hero remembered that he had returned a few days ago, and still had not practiced martial arts. It was time to start now. Meanwhile, a girl was walking along the road, thinking that she was simply worthless, because she worked until late just to feed herself and her children. Well, unexpectedly, she discovered clothes hanging nearby. These clothes looked like they belonged to a doctor, and the girl was going to take them home. Not only these clothes lay nearby, but also others. A lot of different things were scattered right on the floor. The surprised girl wanted to understand why the doctor scattered his things here. As she picked up all the things, she knew she had to return them. Suddenly, Shiniko Yur asked her not to move. Events continued the next day with clothes strewn everywhere. Toad looked at the phone that Grandpa Chio was calling. Sleepy Shiniko Yur answered his grandfather and wanted to know why he was calling. As it turned out, he wanted to have dinner with his grandson at home. The hero really didn't mind and said that they would see each other in the evening. When he woke up, he saw Xiaolan Ting lying not far from him, and this truly surprised him. While thinking about everything that happened last night, he realized that he had gone to the forest to practice martial arts. They practiced together with the chicken, but then, someone began to make the sounds of footsteps, and it was clear that the person was getting closer and closer every second. Turning around, the hero saw that it was Xiaolan Ting. His fellow practitioners immediately became ill. His grandfather said that no one should interfere during pair training, otherwise everything would get out of control. As soon as the guy got distracted, he immediately lost the chicken and it got out of control. So the chicken went into mega mode and that was the end for everyone. Well, then the girl already knew everything, because after that she saw everything. At first Lady didn't believe him because she thought she just didn't deserve him. But everything that happened was true, although the girl was getting ready to go to work, and was no longer going to return to this conversation. All these years the hero kept his virginity, and even so he restrained himself, all in order to fulfill his grandfather's last wish. Touching his face, the guy discovered something. With joy, the hero realized that his face was no longer paralyzed and that he could now express emotions. Smiling, he realized that even his grandfather could not cure him. Perhaps it was because of last night. Unexpectedly, students came up and turned to the doctor. All because the doctor asked them to come back the next day. The good-natured doctor asked the students to go to his room, and he began to carry out acupuncture procedures. there is no need to be afraid of such procedures, because the patient will not even feel the pain. The stunned girl wanted to know why it was necessary to undress for the procedure, but Shiniko Yur asked not to worry, because he would close his eyes and not see anything. The doctor was truly incredible, he could heal even with his eyes closed, and the girls thought that this only happens in comics. But the bandage had several holes through which the eyes could see, and the doctor saw absolutely everything. Laughing, the boy said that he was really to blame, but the girls realized that he did it on purpose. After a second, he turned away and decided to fix everything, so he began to do something with his mask on his face. Wrapping the bandage around her eyes completely, the doctor decided to begin the procedure. Events continued 30 minutes later, and the procedure was already over. Now the girl was very weak, and she needed to sleep and not be disturbed. Shiniko Yur was going to go to Chio's house, and asked his friend to take care of the girl. The lady did not believe in his abilities until she saw everything with her own eyes. Some time later, events continued at Chio's house. Last time he was greeted by a lot of people, there must be some preparations going on there now. The hero literally came to a huge palace, which even had its own helicopter. The building itself was simply gigantic, and probably cost millions of yuan. Then the car took him and his grandfather to the main hall. Today this is not the case, and the attitude towards guests has deteriorated greatly, because the people here are no longer as hospitable as before. Walking the path is indeed very rough, and Shiniko Yur realized that things are not that simple. Turning his attention to the fire extinguisher, he decided that it was indeed very strange that he was there. But when he saw it, he had an idea. All this time, grandfather watched him and said that Shiniko Yur never ceases to amaze him. Despite the whole situation, he is calm. As expected, grandfather chose the right person. And very soon, this guy will become really very successful. However, Xin doesn't believe it. She wants to break the engagement today. She will definitely regret it in the future. Qiu Hongxin's father also told his grandfather that they discussed this and he couldn't break his promise. Their daughter said she would commit suicide if he forced her to marry this guy. As if nothing had happened, grandfather only said that he knew it and was going to meet his guest. A few minutes later, the main character was already near the main entrance, and the adults ordered him to get off the fire extinguisher. With a pathetic expression on his face, the hero got down and began to walk. And the fire extinguisher itself got stuck in the wall, because it was flying at incredible speed. The elderly man was incredibly happy that such a guest had come to him, because they had not seen each other for a long time, and he had prepared a lot of delicious food. The good-natured and rich man asked his guest to go inside and eat whatever he wanted for a fifth. The quick-witted guy immediately realized that his grandfather had called him not only for dinner. It was really true, his grandfather wanted them to get married together with Qiu Hongxin. After all, they decided this with his grandfather, and he always wanted to know the reason why they decided so. His grandfather and grandfatherly promised each other to be brothers, and tried hit on Xin's grandmother, but she became his wife. 25 years ago, her grandmother died due to an accident, and his grandfather thought that he was responsible for this death. Xin was born that same year, and as compensation, they decided to make this engagement in the future. The hero understood everything clearly, but knew that Qiu Hongxin wanted the wedding to be cancelled. The girl's mother also believed that the guy was not worthy of her, and for their family this wedding would only be a loss. They conferred with her husband and decided to write a check to Shiniko Yura as compensation. If he agrees to break the engagement for 200 million, then the check will be his, and such a request should be thought carefully, because for him, it's like winning the lottery. He won't be able to earn that much money in his entire life. The offer with a check for 200 million really sounded very attractive, and the guy even thought about agreeing. A huge stack of papers was also prepared for Shiniko Yur to sign and renounce this engagement. The mother wanted the hero to go with the flow, and just take this money and ruin it, because his grandfather had already explained to him that this wedding was just a joke. The hero really saw no reason to refuse, so he decided to sign these papers as a sign of respect for his grandfather and his decision. And as for the money he recently borrowed, he will definitely return it to them in the future. From now on, there will no longer be any relationship between them. The hero doesn't need a check, because he doesn't want to take that kind of money from them, and he'll just leave the girl behind. If I don't agree to break the engagement, then he doesn't need to say anything more, and since grandpa didn't mind, he'll leave, because he still can't buy a daughter. Shuniko Yur decided to say goodbye to his grandfather, and thanked him, and also planned to invite him to dinner next time. The elderly man only apologized to the guy for such behavior. After all, he understood that this child was a diamond without a cut, and his granddaughter should regret such a decision. Turning his head, grandfather discovered that there was no food on the table. Everyone present at the dinner was amazed that the food really disappeared in an instant.